সবসময় চেতনাকে মনে রাখতে পারি, এটার জন্যই আমাদের আজকের এই ক্ষুদ্র আয়োজন। আমাদের সামনে আজকে আমাদের মাঝে উপস্থিত আছেন এমন অনেক নারীরাই যারা নিজেদের স্ব কর্মস্থলে স্ব ক্ষেত্রে সমুজ্জ্বল, তারা হয়তো নক্ষত্রের মতো, তারার মতো। যেমন আমার সামনে আমি আজকে দেখতে পাচ্ছি সুস্মিতা আনিসকে, ডক্টর রৌনক জাহান ম্যামকে, আমাদের সবার শ্রদ্ধেয় ডক্টর ফাহমিদা খাতুন ম্যামকে। তো আর দেরি না করে আজকের এই ছোট আয়োজনটি আমরা শুরু করতে যাচ্ছি আমার সিপিডির আমাদের সহকর্মীদের একটি ছোট আয়োজনের মাধ্যমে। আমি এখন মঞ্চে ডেকে নিতে চাচ্ছি উম্মুল খায়ের তিথি, রেজওয়ানা রশিদ অন্তরা, ইর্তেজা আকন্দ এবং মারফিয়া আলমকে। প্লিজ।
হ্যালো। জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক, শান্তির জয় হোক, সাম্যের জয় হোক, সত্যের জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক। শান্তি সর্ব অপৌরুষ মিথ্যা ও ভ্রান্তি, সর্ব কল্যাণ পীড়ন শান্তি, সর্ব অপৌরুষ মিথ্যা ও ভ্রান্তি, হোক ক্ষয় ক্ষয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক, জয় হোক।
পার্শ্বে রাখো মোরে সংকটে সম্পদে, সম্মতি দাও যদি কঠিন ব্রতে, সহায় হতে পাবে তবে তুমি চিনিতে মোরে।
দৈন গ্লানি বিদেশ অহেতু, দূর হোক অভাব ব্যাধি শোক দুঃখ, দৈন গ্লানি বিদেশ অহেতু, মৃত্যু বিজয়ী হোক অমৃত লোভ, ভয়ভীত দুর্বল নির্ভয় হোক, মৃত্যু বিজয়ী হোক অমৃত লোভ, ভয়ভীত দুর্বল নির্ভয় হোক, রবে নাই শৃঙ্খল শৃঙ্খলতার বন্ধন, কারাগার হবে হবে চুরমার, রবে নাই শৃঙ্খল শৃঙ্খলতার বন্ধন, কারাগার হবে হবে চুরমার, পার হবে বাধার গিরি মরু পারাবার, পার হবে বাধার গিরি মরু পারাবার, নির্যাতিত ধরা মধুর সুন্দর প্রেমময় হোক, নির্যাতিত জয় হোক, সাম্যের জয় হোক, সত্যের জয় হোক, 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 জয় হোক।
আমি চিত্রাঙ্গদা, আমি রাজেন্দ্র নন্দিনী, নহি দেবী নহি সামান্যা রানী, পূজা করি মোরে রাখিবে ঊর্ধ্বে, সে নহি নহি, হেলা করি মোরে রাখিবে পিছে, সে নহি নহি। আজ শুধু করি নিবেদন, আমি চিত্রাঙ্গদা, আমি রাজেন্দ্র নন্দিনী।
অনেক ধন্যবাদ, অনেক ধন্যবাদ আমার প্রিয় সহকর্মীদেরকে এরকম একটি চমৎকার উপস্থাপনার জন্য। সত্যের জয় হোক, শান্তির জয় হোক, সাম্যের জয় হোক, সব বাধা পেরিয়ে সকল নারীর জয় হোক, এটাই হয়তো বা আমাদের আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের থিম। তো আর দেরি না করে, উইদাউট ফার্দার অ্যাডিউ, I would like to request the Executive Director of Center for Policy Dialogue to come to the stage with the distinguished guests for today's dialogue. Ma'am, please. Once again, thank you so much for coming to our event, and happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
ওকে, গুড মর্নিং, শুভ সকাল। আন্তর্জাতিক নারী দিবসের শুভেচ্ছা জানাচ্ছি আরেকবার। Center for Policy Dialogue এর পক্ষ থেকে, and thank you very much for joining us today to celebrate the International Women's Day. So we have, as you can see, we have a very distinguished panel of speakers. But apart from these speakers, those who are seated in front of me, they are also very distinguished. They are all bright and, very well positioned and leaders in their own field, each and every one of you. So because this stage is smaller than that space, so we had to pick a few. But it doesn't mean that, you are not the brighter stars. You all are bright and also, leaders, as I have mentioned, in your own field, in your own capacity. So we have a panel discussion, but I would also like to give the floor to the people who are in front of me, both male and female. So you can see that this is only one occasion in the year where I see that the participation of female guests are higher than male, and also the female speakers. Usually at CPD we organize dialogues every other week, maybe sometimes twice a week. Then we always have a conscious effort to bring in female speakers, and there are many. I don't believe that there aren't. If we look around, there are qualified and competent women experts and entrepreneurs, leaders, but we don't sometimes give that much effort. But having said that, there is also a dearth of more women leaders. We want to see there's a dearth of women leaders in their own field. But this is one occasion where we celebrate, as you know, that International Women's Day is for celebration what we have achieved in economic, social, and political arena. While we celebrate, we also want to highlight some of the challenges where we want to work on moving forward if we want to see and have an equal world. And as you have seen, as you have known, the theme for this year's International Women's Day is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, which means that when we talk about the economic development, we not only mean that it is income growth or growth in certain economic sectors, but it is an all-encompassing growth which takes care of the economy, society, and also the environment. Particularly the importance of environment has been very crucial, as we have seen that over the years, the impact of climate change has been so prominent, and it is going to destroy all our achievements if we do not take care of that. And women have been taking leading roles in terms of taking care of the environment to build a sustainable world, sustainable society. And that's why we have to also empower women, give a level playing field so that going forward, they can contribute in their own areas. So that is the main theme, but also you see that the campaign theme is break the bias. Because bias, if you are biased against someone, be men or women, then it creates discrimination. And when there is discrimination in the society, there is inequality in the society. And we do not really want an unequal society, and that society, in the end, is not sustainable again. So in order to have a sustainable, inclusive society, we need to have gender equality. And that should start from today. Over the years, in the context of Bangladesh, we have seen that over the last 5 decades, there have been so much progress in all areas, economy and society and political arena. And women have also progressed a lot. Their participation in the labor force has increased. Their participation in political arena has also increased. However, we are yet to achieve gender equality. And in the World Economic Forum's report 2021, we have seen that for the whole world, I mean, gender equality is a far-fetched goal still today. And they have estimated that the way we are progressing, it will take another 135 years to achieve gender equality. So that is, we don't want to go that far. We want to expedite the process. And in order to expedite that process, we have to work together. It is not only a journey of women, but it is also a journey of men. So that is why we feel together we can work better, we are more stronger, and we are more focused. And we always say that in order to have a gender equality in a society, we need to keep the gender focus at the center of policies, be it legal law or social or economic policy. It has to be at the center point, it has to be mainstreamed, it has to be integrated so that we don't think separately. We don't need a separate, for example, we deal with budget, with separate budget. It should be in such a way that it is inbuilt. Each and every ministry, each and every department will have their own budget, gender budget, which will ensure women's equality to and equal access to resources. So this is, as you know, this is a subject which is close to our heart, so we can go on. But I don't want to take much time, but as you have, as you can see that we have such a distinguished panelist, I would like to introduce them. But before that, let me also just inform you about the structure of the discussion. We will hear from our speakers for 5 minutes, and then we'll open the floor. And I really earnestly request you to comment, or if you have a question, please do so. I know you also are great thinkers and great doers as well. Then we have a special guest and also chair. So first, আমি সবাইকে পরিচয় করিয়ে দিচ্ছি যে প্রথমে যে ডিস্টিংগুইশড স্পিকাররা কথা বলবেন। আমাদের সাথে আছে মিস রিজওয়ানা রিদিতা, the CEO and co-founder Hydroco Bangladesh Limited. I think she is the youngest speaker here, and she একজন entrepreneur, and she was listed as Forbes 30 under 30. So for her contribution and also for her entrepreneurship. We have Taslima Akhtar Lima, who is the president Bangladesh Garments Shramik Sanghati. She works with the workers, and also she's a photographer, she's a teacher also. We have barrister Rashna Imam. We all know she's the managing partner, Akhtar Imam and Associates. She is another young lawyer, young and prominent lawyer. She works on a lot of right-based issues as well. And we have Dr. Firdausi Kadri, another very distinguished and our pride, emeritus scientist, emeritic and respiratory Infectious Disease Division, International Center for Diarrheal Disease and Research, ICD-DRB, Dhaka. And we have Mr. Said Nasim Manzoor, Director, Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Managing Director, Apex Footwear. He was also the president of MCCCI for a few years. Thank you, Mr. Nasim, for joining, but he's not the only man here. I didn't want to intimidate you. You do. So thank you very much. Then we have, our expat friends who are working here from abroad, who are representing their countries in Bangladesh. We have Ms. Paula Schneider, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Bangladesh. We have Her Excellency Ms. Winnie Estrup Peterson, Ambassador, Embassy of Denmark in Bangladesh. We have Her Excellency Ms. Alexandra Berg von Linde, Ambassador, Embassy of Sweden in Bangladesh. And thank you all for joining. And we also have our special guest today, Dr. Hussein Zillur Rahman, who is the chairperson, BRAC, former advisor to the caretaker government and founder chairman, PPRC Power and Participation Research Center. He will be joining us shortly. He has another meeting, but he has promised us that he would be coming before the midway of our session. And we have our chair, our own Professor Raunak Jahan, who is a distinguished fellow and also member CPD Board of Trustees, Center for Policy Dialogue. She is a renowned professor of political science. She is, I will read out some of the, a bit more on our speakers when they speak. But so without further ado, I think I can start the proceedings of the session. So first, I would like to invite Professor Raunak Jahan because she is the chair, she will speak at the end, but I would also request her to set the tone of this session so that we can focus our discussion while we do discuss. But let me also then read out a little bit about Professor Raunak Jahan. She was, I think they should, maybe just, I think for the young generation, I think, Professor Jahan is one of the first ones, I think, to receive her PhD from Harvard University in the 70s. She was a senior research scholar and adjunct professor of international affairs at the School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University. She was a professor of political science at Dhaka University, and also she headed women's program at the UN Asia Pacific Development Center, Kuala Lumpur, and International Labor Office in Geneva. She was a research fellow at Harvard, Chicago, and Boston universities in the USA, and Christian Michelsen Institute in Norway. She was the Rajani Kothari Chair of Democracy at the Center for Study of Developing Society in Delhi. So over to you, Professor Jahan. Just take it, it will.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Yesterday I requested Fahmida whether I will divide my 8 to 10 minutes by 2 segments. I would want to speak first. And title of the campaign theme is Breaking the Bias. And generally, as you know, in Bangladesh, the chair is always given the slot to speak last. So, which I think, if the chair at the last moment asks questions, then it's not fair to the panelists, because then they don't have any space to answer. So I thought that I will break that bias, and I will first raise some questions and issues that I have for the panelists, and they are free to answer or not answer whatever questions I raise. And then, of course, I will have to make some compromises, and I will speak last, but I'll try not to raise further questions with the panelists. But before I raise, I have 2 questions, but before I raise 2 questions, I don't know how much of the cultural program the ambassadors were able to follow. The 2 points I want to make. First, that I have lived in New York and also in other Western countries for many years, but I have never seen International Women's Day celebrated in the same way that it is celebrated in a very grand style in recent years in Bangladesh. Yesterday, I wrote an email to all my feminist friends in the States saying that all of our, at least I take 3 newspapers, Pratham Alo, Daily Star, and Dhaka Tribune, and I said, all the newspapers, this is the front page news. And not only the front page lead story, even in the inside pages, there are many such stories. So how about New York Times or Washington Post? So my friend said, sorry, nobody took notice that this is the Women's Day. And I think that this is very important, that many of the diplomats who are here, they must have noticed that we celebrate days. And I think, and March is of course full of various days of celebrations. But I think this celebration is very important because that's the way certain kinds of values that you are reminded every year that what it is all about. And that is how certain knowledge would be passed from one generation to another. And so even our language day, we have been celebrating since 1952, for instance. So I think that particularly, I think for many people these days, they are not reading books, they are only reading Facebooks. But I think at least because of the celebrations, that particular day, the newspapers devote. And I think that plays a very important role. The second point I want to make is the songs and the poem that was recited. These were written by our own poet, I think, which was also more than or almost 100-year-old at the same time when the Women's Day the idea was introduced in the conference in Copenhagen prior to the Second Socialist International by Carla Jenkins. But these songs, the theme of the songs is to celebrate or say victory to truth, to peace, and also equality. So these things were written almost 100 years old by our own poets. And then the poem that was recited was a very famous dance drama that has been also performed here, again for almost 100 years, which is a character from the Mahabharata, where the woman says that don't put me on a pedestal and don't trample on me, just keep me on your side, I'm an equal partner. So the point I'm trying to make, that this whole idea of equality has been with us for almost 100 years. And it has been, all these beautiful things about women's equality has been also written by Rabindranath Tagore, who actually was a Nobel laureate poet who got the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913. So that these are very much part of our tradition, and it is not something that often in women's conferences or even conferences, so sometimes it is said that these are all Western ideas, but these are actually not Western ideas, that these ideas of equality of various classes, equality of between men and women, have been with us for for more than a century. Let me now raise my two questions. I think in the panel we have individual women who have, in their own right, have achieved remarkable success. And they are on top of their career. And they have achieved this in a very unequal world, and often they are in professions which generally are dominated by men. So, and women, I'm sure that they have struggled themselves, they faced many obstacles, and they have also overcome these obstacles. And you can take the questions in any way you like. You have only 5 minutes. So you can either talk about your own, what major obstacle you faced and what strategies you had, or you can say what particular state policy might have helped you, and what other biases or obstacles you see which still exist. Because I find that the global trends of progress is very similar, whether you are in the north or south. and the global constraints. And where there are persistent inequalities, these are also very similar, whether you are in the north or south. And so I think that is my first question. And for Nasim Munzoor, what I will say, even though he is a man, but I know that Nasim is on record saying that he has been inspired by his mother. And though his father is also a pretty, I think, astounding person, his father is also a pioneer. And I think Nasim's other family members, including his spouse, have also done remarkable things. So I would say that he must have observed also what women around him, what obstacles they face, special obstacles that he has not faced, and how they have coped. And what he finds, because he runs a big business, and he has been the head of a metropolitan chambers. So what biases still exist that he notices? My second question is that what policies you yourself have initiated in your organization or in your life that you think might have contributed towards gender equality, and what you are proud of? And for Taslima, I think if you want, you can talk about just your own life, but also you are the trade unionist organizer for the garment workers. And what really, I think their life conditions and their dreams are very different from our dreams, those of us who are sitting here. And so what has changed? I mean, the whole, I think one of the things that have sparked also International Women's Day, we know, I mean, that's what the legend has it, the garment workers in New York City who were struggling in the turn of the beginning of the 20th century for 8-hour work. And so what has changed really for the garment workers? Because I think many of us have seen many changes in our lives in the last 50 years. And what has changed and what obstacles they face, if you want to talk about them. But I know that even as a trade union organizer, you face, even in the trade union movement also, I think this issue of gender equality starts. Just to give one example, and I will close here. Then when I was heading the women's program at the ILO, and SEVA, which is one of the women trade unions in India who were organizing women, not in organized sectors, but in self-employed women, that other male trade union leaders didn't want SEVA to be recognized as a trade union. They said, no, they are an NGO, but we don't want to, we don't want them to be listed as a trade union. And the SEVA leader, Ella Bhatt, said, no, I want an equal representation as a trade union, because that is another movement. So I will stop here, and I'm sorry, I probably exhausted my 10 minutes, so I will not speak anymore at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ranogappa. I think you have really nicely set out what we should focus, and you have made my job much easier. I don't have to just say anything. I'll just call upon the speakers one by one. Earlier I alerted them with some ideas that what can they, which issues they can dwell upon, but your pointed questions will help them to organize and make their presentation very focused. So let me call upon Ms. Rizita Rizwana. Rizita, as I have mentioned, who is the co-founder and also CEO of Hydroco Plus Bangladesh Limited. Over to you. So I would request to limit your speech within 5 minutes so that we can come back later on after we hear from the audience. Okay, thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome. I'm very glad to be here. We are in great spirits, and okay. And I'm grateful for everyone's presence here. So my name is Rizwana Ridita. I'm the co-founder and COO of Hydroco Plus. My quest for meaningful work has led me to leave the safe harbor of Bay Street in the financial district of Toronto, Canada, and led me to a humble street and a nice manhole in the street of Dhaka City. So to join the efforts in combating some of the pressing world issues today, I strongly believed in a young man's vision. The founder of Hydroco Plus, Zahin Razin, and we embarked on a journey to solve some of the water issues in Bangladesh. I'm sure everyone in this room will agree that each individual has a right to realize their true potential and live in a secure and equitable world. And clean drinking water is a significant resource to sustain life. When exploring signs of life, one of the primary things we look for is water, whether it is in this planet or beyond. And ensuring everyone has access to clean, safe drinking water is non-negotiable. This is where innovation and technology can play a vital role in ensuring safety and water efficiency. In this era, through innovation, political will, and proper action, nature can find a great ally in technology to help restore balance and get ahead of the game. And this is where Hydroco Plus comes in. At Hydroco Plus, we bring together a deep understanding of water-related challenges with the most advanced technologies to solve some of the pressing water issues here in Bangladesh as well as all over the world. So what do? At Hydroco Plus, we are focused on delivering water intelligence to drive water safety and availability with actionable insights real time. In other words, you can imagine an MRI system for Bangladesh and the water distribution network underground. What takes labs, sometimes under-resourced labs, with conventional methods, at least 2 weeks to measure, it takes this data-obsessed team under 2 minutes to provide. Clean drinking water is a concern, whether on land or at sea. And by harnessing the power of AI, we can go underground like deep sea divers and detect leakages, analyze the water quality, and reduce loss to leaky pipes while preventing the flow of contaminated water. Through this, we eventually hope to predict and prevent future outbreaks and ensure safe water for generations to come. We know climate change is unfolding upon us, and for climate justice, we need gender equality. To support sustainability of water resources, women's voice is critical in water management and governance for policies that benefit both men and women. Gender equality is a powerful tool, and we need to equip women with skills for the future to not just simply manage, but lead change. Change takes strong leadership, and women make effective, powerful leaders. By empowering women through gender equality, we can create momentum and continue to build the urgency to build a sustainable tomorrow for everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ridita. What you are doing is very much within the broader theme of sustainable development and how women are contributing towards achieving sustainable development. Once again, congratulations for your achievements. Now, I would like to call upon Ms. Taslima Akhtar Lima, who is the president of Bangladesh Garment Shramik Sanghati. So, Taslima, Raunak Appa has given you the question already. So.
অনেক ধন্যবাদ রৌনক আপা এবং ফাহমিদা আপা সহ আজকে যারা এখানে উপস্থিত আছেন। আমি একটু প্রথমেই আলাপ করতে চাই ইতিহাসে ফিরে গিয়ে কারণ নারী দিবসের সূত্রপাত ঘটিয়েছিলেন যারা, আপনারা সবাই জানেন যে 1857 সালে নিউ ইয়র্ক শহরের সুচ কারখানার শ্রমিকরা, সেই আটলান্টিকের ওপারে আর আমরা যদি বঙ্গোপসাগরের এপারে বাংলাদেশের শ্রমিকদেরকে দেখি, সেই নারী শ্রমিকরাই কিন্তু তাদের উত্তরাধিকার। সেই সময়ে দাবি উঠেছিল শ্রমিকদের 8 ঘন্টা কাজ, মজুরি বাড়ানো, চাইল্ড লেবার বন্ধ করা, এবং বিশেষভাবে ভোটিং রাইটস নিয়ে তখন কথা হয়েছিল, এবং তখন নারীদের ভোটের অধিকার ছিল না। তো আজকের এই সময় এসে আমি আজকের নারী দিবসে বিশেষভাবে বাংলাদেশের পোশাক শ্রমিক যারা আমাদের এতগুলো মানুষকে এখানে বসার জায়গা করে দিয়েছে, নারীর অধিকার নিয়ে কথা বলার জায়গা তৈরি করেছে, তাদের সকলকে সালাম জানাই। আমরা এখন যে জায়গায় আছি সেটা একটা চতুর্থ বিপ্লবের সময়, অটোমেশনের সময়। কারখানায় নতুন নতুন মেশিন এসেছে। 44 লাখ শ্রমিক থেকে 40 লাখ শ্রমিক পোশাক কারখানা এখন। এবং একটা সময় বলা হতো যে 80 ভাগ নারী, এখন 60 ভাগ নারী। সেই নারীরা এখন কেমন আছেন সেই বিষয়ে যদি বলতে যাই, গত 2 দিন আগে আমরা একটা আলোচনা করছিলাম অটোমেশন এবং নারীদের ঝরে পড়া নিয়ে। আলোচনাটা ছিল সন্ধ্যাবেলা, মানে 8টার দিকে। তো সেই আলোচনায় আমাদের 2 জন নারী শ্রমিক এবং একজন পুরুষ শ্রমিক ছিলেন অন্যান্য বিশেষজ্ঞ আলোচকদের সাথে। তো নারী শ্রমিক দুজনেই অফিস থেকে এসে এতই ক্লান্ত, একজন ঘুমিয়ে পড়েছিলেন এবং আরেকজন আসলে খুব বেশি কথা বলার মতো অবস্থায় ছিলেন না। আর যিনি পুরুষ শ্রমিক তিনি অনেকটা অটোমেশনের কারণে কি সমস্যা হচ্ছে সেগুলো নিয়ে কথা বলছে। তো এটা থেকে কিন্তু বোঝা যায় যে আমাদের দেশের পোশাক শ্রমিকরা এখন যে ঝরে পড়ছে, বলা হচ্ছে তাদের দক্ষতা নাই, এবং এই দক্ষতা না থাকার পেছনে তাদের ঘর গেরস্থালির যেই কাজ, চাইল্ড কেয়ার কারখানায় না থাকা, তারপরে ব্রেস্ট ফিডিং কর্নার না থাকা যথেষ্ট পরিমাণে, যেটা থাকা দরকার, এবং নারী পুরুষের যে ডিসক্রিমিনেশনটা সোসাইটিতে আছে, সেই যে ঘরে ফিরে ঘরের যেই কাজগুলো নারীকে করতে হচ্ছে, সেই জায়গা থেকে না বের হলে আসলে নারীর অবস্থাটা কি হবে সেটা আমার মনে হয় যে আমাদের প্রত্যেকেরই ভাবা দরকার। এবং বর্তমান সময়ে এসে পোশাক শ্রমিকরা যেমন নারী দিবসে নারীর দাবি না হয়ে পোশাক শ্রমিকরা দাবি তুলছে যে দ্রব্যমূল্য কমানোর জন্য, এবং এমনভাবে বাজারে সমস্ত কিছুর দাম বেড়েছে, একজন শ্রমিকের পক্ষে কি একটা মধ্যবিত্তর পক্ষেও টিকে থাকা মুশকিল। এবং সেই ক্ষেত্রে আমি মনে করি এই দ্রব্যমূল্যের বিষয়টা একই সাথে আসলে নারী আন্দোলনের বিষয় হবার কথা। যদি আমরা দেশের বেশিরভাগ নারীদের কথা চিন্তা করি, এই জায়গায় আমার মনে হয় যে আমাদের একটা দূরত্ব আছে। মধ্যবিত্ত নারীরা আমরা যে বিষয় নিয়ে কথা বলছি, শ্রমিক নারীদের সাথে আমাদের সংযোগটা ঠিকমতো হচ্ছে কিনা, আমার মনে হয় নারী দিবসে সেই ভাবনাটা আমাদের বিশেষভাবে জরুরি। আর আমি আর অল্প কিছু কথা বলছি, আমার বোধহয় সময় আছে আর 2-1 মিনিট। নারীর যেই পরিচয়টা সমাজের মধ্যে আছে, নারী মা, নারী গৃহিণী, এবং নারী ঝুঁকিহীন কাজ করেন, এর বাইরে আমরা দেখছি এখানেই বসে আছেন অনেক নারী যারা আমাদেরকে অনুপ্রেরণা দেন। নারী শ্রমিকদের একটা বড় অংশ, আমরা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের ভিসি হিসাবে নারীদেরকে দেখি, ব্যাংকের কর্মকর্তা হিসাবে নারীদেরকে দেখছি, খেলোয়াড় হিসাবে দেখছি, পাহাড়ে উঠছে নারী, এবং আমাদের যারা নেতৃত্বে আছেন তারাও নারী। কিন্তু আমরা যদি আইনের দিকে দেখি, সেখানে দেখা যাবে যে নারী পুরুষের সমান অধিকার নাই, সম্পত্তিতে সমান অধিকার নাই, এবং শিশু বা বাল্যবিবাহ বন্ধের উল্টো যে আইনগুলো হয়েছে সেটা বাল্যবিবাহকে প্রমোট করতেছে। ফলে আমরা এমন একটা সময়ের মধ্যে আছি, আসলে সেই সময়ের মধ্যে দিয়ে আমাদের পরিচয়ের প্রশ্নটাকে আমার মনে হয় বিশেষভাবে সামনে আনা দরকার। রোকেয়ার সময় রোকেয়া নারী শিক্ষার কথা বলেছিলেন, তার আগে রাজা রামমোহন রায় বা বঙ্কিমের সময় আমরা দেখেছি সতীদাহ নিয়ে কথা হয়েছে। আজকে কেবল আমার কাছে মনে হয় কেবল শিক্ষিত বা আয় করছি এটাই যথেষ্ট না। আমি আসলে কে, আমার পরিচয় কি, এবং এইটা আমার মনে হয় যে নারীদেরকে এই প্রশ্নটা করা দরকার। কয়জন নারী সম্পাদক আছেন পত্রিকায়, কয়জন নারী টিভিতে আছেন, শারীরিকভাবে কেউ মানে নেতৃত্বে থাকলেই আসলে নারীর অবস্থা বদলে যায় কিনা। কারণ নারী পক্ষপাত নিয়ে যখন আমরা কথা বলছি, সেখানে আসলে নারী কি একটা অখণ্ড, আমরা এক সবাই নারীর মধ্যে নারী মালিক, নারী শ্রমিক, নারী সাদা, নারী কালো, নারী হিন্দু, মুসলমান, আদিবাসী, চাকমা, বাঙালি। ফলে এই সমস্ত যে বিভেদ আমাদের মধ্যে, সেগুলোর সেই পক্ষপাতগুলোকে আমাদের প্রশ্ন করা এবং আমাদের একসাথ হওয়া, নারী পুরুষ এবং শ্রমিক নারীর সাথে আমাদের নারী আন্দোলনের একসাথ হয়ে এখন আগানো দরকার। এবং আমার কাছে মনে হয় এখনকার সময় আমরা যেই রাজনৈতিক আবহে আছি সেখানে আমাদের ভোটের অধিকারই নাই, যেটা 100 বছর আগে নাই, নারী পুরুষ কারোরই নাই। তো সেই জায়গায় আমরা যেই একটা ভয়ের পরিবেশের মধ্যে আছি, আমি বলবো ব্রেক দ্য ফিয়ার টুগেদার। থ্যাংক ইউ।
That was excellent, Taslima. So we heard from Taslima that women's participation has increased, but technology and innovation has also affected their livelihoods in a way that, because we all know that technology can be an equalizer, but technology can also be a divider. And what has happened in the case of ready-made garments, which employs largest sections of women, their participation in the ready-made garment sector was 80% when it began, the journey began, but now it is 60%, and many could not take advantage of the technologies which are being used now in the garment sector. And also she highlighted the issues of prices of essentials which affect the household in general, but also women. At this point, I would like to welcome Zilur Bhai. Please please come here. I'll just sit there. Sorry. Please. He can just sit there. He can sit there. So how problems affect men and women differently. And also there are different types of women, not only that, highly educated and high income groups, but also there are differences between middle class women and also the poor working class women and those who are marginalized. So they are affected by various policies in different ways, and their problems should be also addressed in a focused way, and she also called upon to work together to break the barriers. So now I would like to request Barrister Rashna Imam, Managing Partner, Akhtar Imam and Associates, to make her remarks.
Thank you very much. Respected Chair, Professor Ronak Jahan, special guest, Dr. Hussain Zillur Rahman, our moderator of distinction, Dr. Fahmida Khatun, Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all, and happy belated International Women's Day. As a nation, Bangladesh has no doubt walked a few miles, I believe, towards gender empowerment, or women's empowerment rather. However, the road is still a very long one. And we have made progress so far as RMG is concerned, microfinance, a migrant female workforce is concerned, but so far as safety of women are concerned, human rights abuses are concerned, or even for that matter, income inequality or equal opportunity is concerned, I think we still have a very, very long way to go. Obviously, I don't want to put a damper on the event, but certain things I believe have to be stated again and again for us to actually internalize it and actually start working towards changing it. So I'll start with what I know best. In the last 20 years of my professional life as a lawyer in Bangladesh, I've come across many, many laws that are discriminatory in one form or another against women. So just to name a few, despite the alarming rise of sexual offenses against women over the years, it is shocking that we still have a provision that exempts marital rape from the offense of rape, as long as the wife is under the age of 12 or under. Despite the rise of sexual offenses, we still have a section in the Evidence Act that allows admissibility of character evidence in rape trials to destroy the credibility of the rape victim's testimony, which completely does not take into account, which is not only irrelevant, but it doesn't also take into account the fact that in most cases of rape or any other type of sexual offenses, there isn't many witnesses around. I mean, this is hardly an offense that is created in the public space. So the only piece of evidence, or one of the few pieces of evidence that we have in rape trials, is really the testimony of the witness and, of course, DNA evidence. So if we were to allow something that is completely irrelevant, which is whether the victim is of an immoral character or not, then this really is a huge step backwards so far as our commitment to rape law reform is concerned. I mean, there is, I believe, an NGO, a coalition of around 17 NGOs, and they have a 10-point demand for rape law reform. And surprisingly, none of those demands have been met. I mean, these are very well-researched demands that certain legal changes have to take place for any meaningful reform to rape law, but we haven't seen any of that materialize. On a slightly more positive note, some steps are being taken. I am aware that 2 public interest litigations have been filed to challenge these 2 sections, being the character evidence and the marital rape section. But it's yet to be seen what happens of these sections once the hearing is done and judgment delivered. And of course, moving on to another very controversial area, which is inheritance rights. I mean, how can we really speak of women's empowerment when we don't have equal inheritance rights? I'm not saying that successive governments haven't tried, but they have not tried hard enough, probably in the face of religious groups' protests time and again. But I think it's time that we really look into inheritance laws. And also, one more thing I'd like to mention is that Bangladesh has been, for quite some time, a party to the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, adopted by the UN. But, which is well and good, but we still maintain a reservation on Article 13A, which requires equality in inheritance rights. So far as Bangladesh is concerned, this is still a government-held position that men and women don't have equal inheritance rights. I think this is really, it's really time that we reconsider this reservation and take steps towards reforming inheritance rights of women as well. On a more personal note, Professor Ronak Jahan asked about the struggles. Well, the legal profession, like most of the professions in Bangladesh for that matter, is completely male-dominated. There's very low representation of women in the top tiers of the bar or the judiciary, for that matter. So needless to say that there were struggles all along, despite me being considered privileged because I am a second-generation lawyer. So I'm sure I did not have to face the brunt of the worst of what others have to face who don't come from a legal background. But even then, I'd like to start by saying that the atmosphere in the Supreme Court of Bangladesh is not conducive to women working there. By that, I mean basic things like toilet facilities. Even breastfeeding corner is a recent addition following a public interest litigation. It's not that this was introduced by the system itself. So breastfeeding corners, toilet facilities, sexual harassment for that matter, which no one speaks of as if this is a temple where this doesn't take place. It's as rampant there as anywhere else. And by sexual harassment, I don't just mean that it's limited to unwanted physical advance. You know, we have moved a long way so far as the definition of sexual harassment is concerned. This could be a message, an inappropriate message from a colleague that you're working. This could be a guy following you around from one court to another. I mean, I have so many female colleagues who, when they started out, would deliberately dress down to avoid unwanted attention and look downright shabby and not professional because they did not want to draw unwanted attention. So we need to look into that, and of course, client perception so far as law practice is concerned. I mean, the immediate perception is that I'm not aggressive enough to make it in an adversarial environment like the Supreme Court of Bangladesh. So that is something I had to constantly fight against, you know, prove yourself again and again. Yes, I'm tough. Yes, I'm aggressive. I can do the job as well as a man can. And then finally, they get it, in the sense that finally, once they start getting results, clients at the end of the day are all very result-oriented. So they don't care if it's a man or a woman once they get past that initial phase. So once I started getting a little recognition for the good work that I did, the next glass ceiling appeared, which is income inequality. By income, I mean they feel that if they hire a woman lawyer, they're going to get away by paying me less for the same work. That মেয়েরা তো dedicated হয়, ওরা কাজ অনেক করবে, বেশি টাকা পয়সা দিতে হবে না. Because the assumption is that I'm not the breadwinner, আমি শখে কাজ করি. So again, that is where the way I dealt with it was actually conduct a little market research, find out what your male colleagues are charging for the same service, and negotiate. I never hesitated to negotiate. So I'm very shameless when it comes to negotiating the fees that I think I deserve. So there was another struggle there. And of course, it used to infuriate me when I was underestimated, without even being aware of my abilities. I mean, I had umpteen incidents where the other side's lawyer walks into the court, sees, oh, there's a woman representing the other side, I'm going to demolish her. It's going to be an easy win. So initially it used to infuriate me, but over time I learned to capitalize that it's great if they underestimate me. I can actually make use of that, catch them off guard, they'll be underprepared and easier to demolish. So, so that's how it was overall, professionally speaking, and the low representation of women in the legal profession is, you know, one of the only way to change this would be to have female leaders in the bar. I mean, if we don't have women in leadership positions, the atmosphere is not going to change, because no one really has our interest in mind if you can't identify with the problems that we are facing. So we definitely need more women in the top leadership tiers, and that's the only way to go about it. Sorry, I believe I've taken up a little more time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashna, for your words in the beginning and also towards the end on your personal experience, I think, which tells the story of many women professionals, not only in the low-income category, but also in the high-income category, so that this glass ceiling is really very prominently existent. And I like your shamelessly courageous attitude to grab your rights. Thank you. I would now like to request Dr. Firdausi Qadri, Emeritus Scientist at ICDDRB, to make her remark. And she is another person who has broken the glass ceiling in the world of science.
Thank you for inviting me. It's very interesting to hear what's happening. We have the topic of break the bias for a gender equal world. I think we haven't broken it. This room is full of women.
Zilur bhai, please come here.
You can see the room is full of women. We have only 2 distinguished guests on the dais. We have some people there, but we don't have enough men. So who will break the bias? Who will listen to us? Who will understand what the problem is? So I feel, why do we not have this day in United States? Because they've broken the bias. The men are very much equal to the women, but I don't think so. They're not. But still, they don't have to celebrate a day. They make it happen every day. They force their way in every day. So I'm a scientist, different from many of you who are here. You're literally people, you all speak very well. I can only speak in manuscripts and in PowerPoints. And lots of data and everything. But let me tell you something, that it's a man's world, we know. Although Bangladesh is the best country in the world for me, we have done wonderful things. When I look at, I have been born and brought up here, and when I see all the ways that women are making their way into every industry, every arena, I'm so proud of the country. We've got the prize from the United Nations for the education of women and girls. I think we will go fast. It won't be 135 years, 135 years. It'll be just about a decade and we'll make it. But let me tell you, not about science first, but about my own experience. My husband passed away 6 months ago. And I was so busy in science, I never looked at any paper, any bank paper, anything. I knew nothing. I never paid a bill. And it was difficult for men to accept me when I asked questions. I still don't have my succession certificate. I've had to go to Old Dhaka court, stand for 3 hours, and then one magistrate looked at me and asked me a few rough questions, but I'll have to go again. So I think it's a very difficult world out there for women. But let me tell you about the bright things in my life. First of all, I have been very successful, as you all think I have been, mostly because of all the foreign prizes I've got. I have got all these beautiful, magnificent awards from France, from USA, from Philippines, and then I'm recognized as a very successful woman in Bangladesh. And I'm very happy that I have been recognized, because I've not been recognized for myself, for all the scientists in my country. I'm also very privileged. I was in the Dhaka University, which I left to join the ICDDRB. I would say the best research institute in the biomedical field. And so I'm very, very privileged and very lucky. I've had a platform where I could work, do my things, but still there was inequality. It was difficult for men to adjust to a woman. To assert myself, if I stayed back late in the evening, it was thought of from my male colleagues as not so nice. How can I bring up my children? How will they grow up to be right type of human beings? I would be very smart and say, of course it's okay, but I would naturally have some feeling of doubt in my heart. But actually I was happy because Nasim's mother took care of my children in Sunbeam, so I knew I was in the right place. But let me tell you about science. Every day in my life, I look after men and women scientists. I'm a very senior person at ICDDRB, and I love my job. So I don't only encourage the women, I encourage the men. Because there are so many gaps in the understanding. It's, when I see the women, younger people who come to work at ICDDRB, especially in my own unit, I see them very closely. I see they're always stepping back. It's difficult for them to raise a voice, talk about things that they want to do. So I have to get hold of them. And the thing that I remember the most in my life that I tell them is, you don't have to have power over men. You have to have power over yourself. It's that little bit of a difference that makes a difference. I had 3 children. They were growing up, very nice husband who never bothered me. But I had to struggle. You know, the multitasking thing that we say, it's not so easy actually. But I did it all. Did it with a lot of support from men and women. But the thing is that you have to force yourself to do that extra mile every day, all the time. And for women, you have to do that extra step. I think at least in my experience, I tell my girls everywhere that, yes, you have to go for a postdoc. They say, but I have a small child. I said, take the child with you. That's how you can go. And they struggle. 1 or 2 people draw back and say, no, I don't want to do it. I'm better at home. So many women pass out from universities, from my subject, biochemistry, molecular biology, and then they waver off. I think the most important deficit we have in the world is in STEM subjects. Science, technology, electronics, mathematics. We talk about it all the time. They do enter into universities. They do enter into medical colleges. But at a certain point, they almost give up or just stagger and linger at a baseline level or at a mid-level. Don't have the courage to go up, don't know how to do it. And so I think that's something in Bangladesh that we must force women to do. And we can't do it alone. We need men, like Nasim sitting over here, other people. We have to teach men to accept that a woman also has to excel, that a woman also has to take that extra step to shine. And it is difficult. It's easy to say, very difficult. But if you want Bangladesh to go up, we need the 50% of the females, the 50% of the women to share. And that should happen. And I hope in the next, I can talk about many things, but I mean, we all know the problems. My problems are different from everybody else's. It's difficult because it's not only difficult for a woman, but also for a man to excel in the things that we want to do. Genomics, bioinformatics, we want to do cancer research. Every one of us in my field, in the biomedical field, want to do stem cell research. It's beyond, sometimes beyond our capacity. We do whatever we can. But to excel, we still need a lot of effort, not only from governments. I don't think governments can do anything on their own. It's the private enterprise. It's the private touch that can take us far. But I'm a very positive person, and my glass is always half full. And I think we've come a long way, and I hope CPD next meeting will be half full of men here. And they have to listen to us every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Fahmida, for your really remarkable journey professionally and also on personal level. And we do look forward to have the half glass full, or full glass actually. So, but sometimes we do look at the half empty glass because to make ourselves better. So thank you once again. Now I would turn to Sir Nasim Manzoor, who is the director of MCCI, and there have been a lot of questions posed to you, and you have been referred by almost each and every one. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Fahmida. Thank you to CPD for inviting me. And as the minority in the room, I'm very happy today to be the minority in the room, with all due respect to APA. But I think we'll try to make up in quality what we lack in quantity today. So congratulations and happy belated International Women's Day. I think the question referred to me by the Honorable Chair, I'll come to at the end, but I'd like to talk a little bit at a macro level of what we see happening with women's empowerment, and then at an enterprise level at what we do at Apex, and then the personal. And I'll try and cover that in 5 minutes. If you look at C-level participation, what we call women's empowerment, women at director level or C-level, they ranked 15 countries. And I mean, you're a little bit surprised at which the #1 country is. I'll spare you the suspense. It's Singapore. So that's a city-state, so for me it doesn't really count. The #2 is the US, as has been pointed out by the chair and as other speakers. But what surprised me was Germany, which was just over UAE at #13. So the takeaway for me personally there is that economic power development / wealth growth does not equate to empowerment. And for me, that's very, very important. And I think Bangladesh can learn from that and can grow from that. We don't have to become, middle income, higher middle income for us to get 50% of our people at the table, and I mean women. So I think that's a very powerful understanding for me. Second, it is true, and it's shameful, that of the 500 Fortune companies, Fortune 500, 4% of the CEOs are women. And again, that can't be right in terms of talent distribution. So yesterday, amongst the many amazing celebrations that we were having for Women's Day, our CFO, who's slightly older, shall I say, slightly different mindset, but he said something very powerful. He said, when I see the CGPA results of the SSC, HSC, I see women outperforming men. So then what happens after that? Why is it at the C-level, general manager level, DGM level? What is happening? Where are these women disappearing to? So I think these are questions, at a macro level that, we should be asking ourselves. Now, I want to talk about mindset, because I think this is where the #1 problem. And one of the things that we do at Apex, where I work, is we ask a lot of questions of the more than 220 colleagues that we have who are women. And I'm talking about women at the management level, not just at we have almost 14,000 people in the family, but 220 at the management level, and we have 22% at that level, which are women. But if you ask them, the #1 problem is mindset, and the mindset of not only men. I was very surprised. A lot of it was women. And let me give you practical experiences from the production floor, which is where I come from. We are shoemakers. We work in production, in pharmaceutical, in leather. When we try to promote female operators who are good machine operators to supervisors, and I'm sure Himapa will be able to attest to that. Other women operators don't want to accept them straight away. They will accept sometimes a man, and this is, we can see it on the floor. We've promoted them to supervisor or line leader. They have resistance from their old colleagues. Oto May, she's a woman. You know, so I think this is because the women are conditioned to think they cannot be in leadership positions. So this is a huge mindset that we need to go. It's not just at the blue collar level. At a trade body that I was involved in, I'm sorry, I'm giving it away here because from the introduction, I was appalled when I went in and I was leading that organization. There were no women in the office. And when I asked the management why, they said there are not enough bathrooms. We have 19 bathrooms in that office, right? And he couldn't find a bathroom. So of course, you know, that became a KRA for him. And yes, he's done some tokenism. He's brought in, I think, 3 women. But again, the mindset, you know, you're in a fantastic wood-paneled old men's club room, and we don't have enough bathrooms. So it was terrible. The other mindset feedback that we are getting from the women in our organization is when men get promoted, it's because they work hard and they're good. Women, they're pretty faces, they're nice, management likes them, the MD likes to be surrounded by women. All of this crap they get told. And so that really, really sucks up a lot of the confidence in the room. So I think this is, again, something that, you know, men get it because they work hard, they have long hours. Women just get a free ride. And I think this is a huge problem that we are seeing. A beautiful word that I think someone told me, a very young colleague, she said double taxation. And then she said, no, correction, triple taxation on women. Because work, homemaker, and mother. So she said, you don't understand, we are triply taxed. And we thought about it, we said, yes, absolutely right. I mean, we all know the multitasking, the 3 roles, but how then do you, so they gave us some feedback saying, first of all, you know, now that you learned work from home, allow us to work from home. Second, compensation actually needs to be different. We thought parity was enough. She actually said no, because we're also in sales, and sales is about being on the shop floor. Now, if she's not on the shop floor, she's not earning commission, so she's being deprived. So how do you find a way to make that equitable? So we didn't know, and we had to learn. So what do we do in Apex? I was trying to make a note of you know, what we've done in the last so many years, but we have a lot to do. First is salary parity. It starts from there. You cannot have 2 salaries for the same function. We started that very early on in the tannery, which is not the most glamorous of jobs for women. But even on the machine level, we said same pay. And I'm very proud to have worked with the workers' union in Hazaribagh, which was there, and they helped us achieve that. Second, you challenge preset notions of what are male jobs and female jobs. You know, we all know gender, you know, careers have no gender. So this is a job, and we got this feedback from some of our women colleagues. So supply chain, finance, and HR are very good jobs for women. But God forbid a woman should want to go into production or sales operation or retail or, you know, even finance to some extent. So you need to challenge that, and you need to crash that line. You make targets. So for example, we've said to certain of our production floors that so many lines have to be not just populated by women at the operator level, but up to the head of the production needs to be a woman within a certain time. When you set that target and you make people accountable, suddenly it becomes possible. Feedback, we've talked about it again. We're trying to do some stores where the entire stores are going to be women-led. So from A to Z, the entire store. Now, if you go to any retail environment in the outside, it's very common to have women in retail, but in Bangladesh, because the stores are closed late, women, this whole thing of going home late, safety, security, that Rashna talked about, this is a huge problem. So then you need to have a separate arrangement. You have to do affirmative action, even though that's not politically correct. You need to do that because women are not on the level playing field when it comes to transportation. Whistleblower, very, very important. Harassment, we've talked about it, sexual, non-sexual, physical, emotional, mental. Having a formal whistleblower policy, making sure that it's not headed by a man when they need to go and report. I think these are little things that we've learned. We are trying to now make that better. Make it part of your purpose. So when every organization, whether you formalize or not, you have a purpose. You have values. So when you make empowerment or equality or equity, whatever you want to call it, part of your purpose, nobody can say, I didn't know. No one can say, well, no one told me. It's part of your purpose. Why don't you know? Make it part of your communications. You know, 50% of your market, whatever you're selling, whether it's legal services or shoes, are women. So you're depriving yourself of market, which I think is very foolish as an entrepreneur. So if you have that in your comms, if you have using that in your branding, in what you're doing, you're going to be attracting also that part of the market, which otherwise you could be missing. Nima said something very good in Bangla, je, Nari ki okhondo. I mean, what is this woman that we're talking about? Even if I talk in our organization, we have women right at the shop floor. We have women working on machines. We have women working in finance. We have women working maybe in visual merchandising. Each group of these have different needs. So I think if we don't disaggregate and have different routes for them, if I look at what are the needs of the women who are working in our stores, their needs and aspirations are totally different from the young MBAs who are joining our company. And I think if we lump it all together, it becomes very tokenism. And it becomes very, if I may say, paternalistic, that, oh, well, we've got 22% women. Yes, but you have none at the C level. And the reason you're 22 is because you've got 6,000 female workers at the plant level. So that doesn't really talk anything about empowerment. Last but not least, I think, which is where we are struggling still, I think most companies, we certainly are, I think we need to value women as women instead of trying to turn women into men. And this is a big problem that I see. Well, you should be more like him. You should be more like, no, why? I mean, there are certain emotional advantages, intellectual advantages that make women women. And those can be used for the betterment of the organization, and we try to do that. We don't succeed, but we are trying. Now, coming to the personal, as was requested by the respected chair. Yes, I was very blessed. I grew up surrounded by powerful women. My mother, Mrs. Manzoor, the joke in the family was that my father would get introduced as the husband of Mrs. Manzoor. And my father is okay, he's done not too bad for his life. So it was a big thing for him, and I think it really hurt him in the beginning, but he got around it, he got over it, and Mrs. Kadri knows what I'm talking about. And then I've been even more blessed because I have an amazing partner and spouse who's an anthropologist, she's a dean, she's a professor, and she's very powerful. And I'm lucky to have her because I think with her, we've been blessed with 3 amazing, also very powerful daughters. And I have no way out, honestly speaking. I've grown up with this, I've seen this, and God forbid I should step out of line. So I think it's very important that you have this kind of check and balance because men tend to slip back into kinds of behavior which tend to be misogynistic, even today. And it's not just in Bangladesh, as I gave you the statistics, it's happening in Germany. I was reading yesterday in Korea that the presidential campaign is being run on quite strong misogynistic lines where young Korean men are feeling threatened by feminism. And it's coming from a place of jobs, which is the challenge that we're seeing. So this is a challenge that we're going to see for breaking the bias because the road to the top gets into a funnel. How many CEOs can we have? And when it's a competition and there are 16 men and 2 women competing for that, men have an edge. So we have to find a way through that. What did I see growing up? I saw absolutely treatment that was not always fair. So I could be out till 2 in the morning, but my sister couldn't. She had to be home at 8. In terms of education, I think we both had equal access. But I see again, even if I look at the career of my parents, my mother's career was always secondary. My father's career was first. And I think this, even though she was an incredible educator and she built an amazing institution, she lived for others. And I don't want my daughters to do that, and they will not. They're going to put their lives at par, and those are choices they can make, but it should not be presumed that, well, what you do will come. Now, let me give you practical examples of this. My wife, because she's a professor and she's a researcher and she's an anthropologist, has to travel a lot. I traveled even more before COVID. It was fine for me to travel. I could be out for 40 days of the month out of 30. But the moment my wife had to go on 4 conferences in a year, it was a big deal for her mother, for my mother, and for extended family, because who's going to take care of the 4 kids? So I think these are the kind of problems that you face as a woman that a man does not. It's kind of taken for granted, and it's changing because now both the partners are working. Economic necessity, as Limapa says, we need to work, but these are the barriers I think we need to break. I think I'm going to end with trying to read a message I got yesterday from a young colleague, because I think what we were talking about, breaking the barrier of these pencil-pushing jobs. So I'm very proud of the fact that in Apex, we have a lot of young women in production, industrial engineers working production. These are qualified technologists, footwear technologists, industrial engineers. And this is a young woman called Naushin Islam. She's an assistant manager quality. And she sent me the pictures from yesterday from one of the events for International Women's Day. And she said, this is my story. I am the third daughter of 4 sisters of my father. Always wanted to be the son of my father as he has none. Want to prove him that I can do what a boy can do. Doing the job in production for 1.8 years now in Apex, was in Decathlon for 4 years. Someday I'll be the CEO of production. So this is Naushin Islam. She's 28 years old, and someday she will be the CEO of Apex if we can keep her, because she's too good. But this is the kind of aspiration, ambition that's out there. She has the talent. We have a couple of old men who will try definitely to pull her down. Now that's where we need to step in. And we need to make sure that talent like this, not because she's a woman, only because she's talented. So I hope that, the transformation is happening. It will not take 135 years. It might take a decade, but I think we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nasim. That is so refreshing. And I think it resonates also with many women's feelings and positions. Now, I would like to request Ms. Paula Schneider, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Bangladesh. So Paula, thank you very much for joining.
Onek Donabad, and well, good afternoon again, all the distinguished guests, and I'm very honored to be in this very inspiring panel today. And so much has been said already, so I almost feel like, what can I add? Because I think I really got the goosebumps when you speak and when you really point out all those important issues that we feel as women, and again, we are here even the privileged ones, so there's so many more barriers to break for the less privileged. And again, Madam Chair, I'd like to put on 2 points. One is a bit more on the personal anecdotes on bias, and I'd like to also combine it with the issue of a sustainable future and the role of women in that, because I think that perhaps can add a few things. But because, of course, we as the Netherlands, we always have a lot of discussion about gender equality, but every time you ask somebody, it means something else for one person to the other, because so much has been already achieved. You work and what is gender equality? But then again, and especially gender equality for a sustainable future, what is that? And again, then I saw yesterday a WhatsApp message from a very dear male friend, and it was meant in a very kind way. He said, "Happy Women's Day. W, wonderful wife. O, outstanding friend. M, marvelous daughter. A, adorable sister. N, nurturing mother. Happy Women's Day." And of course, it was meant so well, where he was even wearing purple, and I mean, so it's meant very well, but it totally shows that there is still so much bias and a one-dimensional way of looking at the role of women in society. And again, of course, many women are good nurturing mothers and adorable sisters, and I don't say it's not true, but please celebrate that on Mother's Day. When your kids make something cute for you, that's fine, that's Mother's Day. International Women's Day is about equality. It's about 50% of the world having their place in society and really make a difference like men do. And so I was thinking, okay, so maybe I should come up with a suggestion or we can draft a message for next year. And the women acronym can be drafted in many ways, but here I decide to take the one that makes a bridge to the sustainable future, because I think also from the Netherlands perspective, this year gender equality is also to see what role can women play to achieve more sustainability for a future in order to really deal with the climate change. So, of course, if you look in the whole spectrum of climate change and the need for action in climate adaptation and mitigation, there's many leaders, there's many women, so many good ideas, and really the drive to make a change. Again, so I came up with the following new acronym, maybe to use next year in my WhatsApp message to celebrate Women's Day. W, the will to lead. Because we need full, equal, and meaningful participation, as was said already, by women and girls in all the different climate negotiations. The O of ownership. To ensure gender-responsive climate action, we need to enhance the voice of women and girls, because women, they really care about their environment, and they, especially in all those vulnerable countries like the Netherlands and Bangladesh. The M of men and boys. I totally agree with you. The men and boys have an extremely important role to play for gender equality. And again, also on climate, these are issues that concern all of us. And we do need to involve boy and men every day in order for women to play the role they can play. And then again, I came up with the E and the N, and then it became more important, more difficult to come up with an acronym for sustainability, but that we can work on. But I want to mention the E is, of course, about empowerment. Because if you're in a factory or a very honorable professor, there is still always the next step in empowerment. And it is never a finished journey. So the E of empowerment. And the N, and I so much agree with you, saying no to bias, saying no to sexual harassment, and saying no to GBV, to gender-based violence. Because this will be a long journey, but we all, men and women, have to say no to that. So again, thank you so much for organizing this very important event. Every year we celebrate, every day we have to work hard on this. Small scale, big scale. When I'm at the school area, it's like, oh, how do you do that? What about the kids? That is also a personal bias. Why? Would you ask the same question to a man? Why? So again, working on the new acronyms of tomorrow for the next WhatsApp messages, let's accept that it is a long journey and it requires day-by-day work and very dedication, like all these very powerful women and men around me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paula, for that wonderful new acronym. So I think I would request every person here, present here, to come up with new acronyms all around this terminology that is women. So I would now, I'm sorry that our another guest, Excellency Winnie, she had an emergency, so she had to leave. Now I would like to request Her Excellency Ms. Alexandra von Linde, who is the ambassador of the Embassy of Sweden in Bangladesh. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all distinguished guests and fellow speakers and ladies, and also the few gentlemen in the room. Good afternoon to you all, and sorry for the mispronunciation that is to come, but আন্তর্জাতিক নারী দিবসে বাংলাদেশের সকল অদম্য নারীদেরকে এবং তাদের সহযোগী সকল পুরুষদেরকে সুইডেনের পক্ষ থেকে উষ্ণ অভিনন্দন জানাচ্ছি। I feel very inspired and somewhat humbled to be here among you all strong and inspiring women. At the same time, let me start with stating the fact that every day is Women's Day, and that it is somewhat sad that we in 2022 still have to have an International Women's Day to celebrate the achievements that have been reached so far. But this day is important. It's important to celebrate the work of women and for women, and also to acknowledge that we still have a long way to go. As a response to your question, Madam Chair, since I represent my country, I will speak about some of the policies that we have in place to promote gender equality on a global level. And I have the ungrateful task of being among the last ones, so I'll try to complement what has already been said. I represent a feminist government, and Sweden was the first government in the world to introduce a feminist foreign policy. And that policy is an agenda for change that aims to strengthen gender equality by strengthening what we call the 3 R's: representation, resources, and rights of women and girls. So this is the starting point for us, very simple. And what I will try to do in the coming few minutes that I have available is to touch about the 3 R's, also in connection with the theme that we have, i.e. Gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. My first point, which is fairly obvious, is that gender equality is key for a sustainable and inclusive society. Sustainable development cannot be achieved if half of the population is left behind. Representation is important. In all contexts, except perhaps this one, but in all other contexts, we must ask ourselves, where are the women? Where are the women? It is as simple as that and as difficult. For instance, we know that negative impacts of climate change disproportionately affect women and girls because of existing inequalities and social norms. And we have seen, especially here in Bangladesh, that successful efforts to adapt to climate change needs the participation of women, the ones that are bearing the burden of the climate crisis. Yet, women are underrepresented in all levels of decision making. And this needs, of course, to end because effective action needs female participation and female representation. In order to achieve sustainable development, gender-sensitive policies are crucial. It's a quite dry sentence, but let's just say that gender-sensitive policies are crucial. Women need to be involved in the planning and the development of policies to ensure that their needs, but also the needs of children, are met. But, and here comes a big but, to effectively tackle the problem of gender inequality, you need the engagement of all. Women's empowerment is not a women's issue. We need the active involvement of men and boys in all forums. Us speaking here to you is speaking to a crowd that is already converted. Second, sustainability includes many different aspects of society. It is about the eradication of power and hunger. It is about ensuring the lasting protection of the planet and natural resources. It is about achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. But ultimately, it is about realizing the rights for all. And women's rights are human rights. For Sweden, this is a key component in realizing sustainable development. Democracy and respect for human rights and the rule of law open the doors for a society that is sustainable and that is inclusive. Respect for human rights also means freedom from fear and freedom from discrimination. We have seen a lot of progress, both globally, but we also have the COVID-19 pandemic, and that has contributed to a severe backsliding on women's rights. UN Women has identified several factors that erode women's rights. It is everything from from lack of access to healthcare, to unequal burden of care, lack of decision-making in the pandemic response. There is an overwhelming rise of gender-based violence, a continuing sharp increase of child marriages. So now more than ever, there is a heightened urgency to address the needs of women. We need to work to break the bias by changing social norms, by changing cultural values, by changing power structures, and the root causes of gender inequality. My third point is stressing resources, and the access to resources. That's the third R. We know that when women's economic empowerment increase, society as a whole benefits. Distributing resources in an equal way and investing in women's economic empowerment, it's not only the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do for any society. The way it has worked for the feminist foreign policy is that we have looked at the allocation of resources and tried to distribute them equally. That means that as a result, it is estimated that around 85% of the development cooperation that Sweden has globally directly or indirectly promotes gender equality. So in sum, when women are given the opportunity to reach their full potential, it is good for society, it is good for economic growth, and it is good for sustainable development. And now I paint this picture in rather bleak colors, but I also want to take this opportunity, of course, to recognize the work that has already taken place. I want to applaud Bangladeshi women and the improvements made by your efforts and your struggles. Civil society here continue to challenge gender norms, promote social justice, play an essential role in the work towards female representation and participation in decision-making. I wouldn't be a representative of my country without saying that Sweden and Bangladesh celebrate 50 years of relations, and that goes for Netherlands too, and many other countries. But throughout our partnership, Sweden has stayed strong in our commitment to promote Bangladeshi women. We have long-term collaborations with our partners, may it be the government, civil society, the UN family, where we have done our best to do so. And now, the end. Every day is Women's Day. Every day we need to work for equality. And every day is a day for all of us to break the bias. So let us work and let us celebrate International Women's Day today and this week, but work for more progress tomorrow. Donovat, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Alexandra, for sharing Sweden's gender-based foreign policy, one of the pioneer country which had, many countries have actually followed Sweden's example. We also have now a very good example, but I think we need to walk a long path ahead. Now, the designated speakers have spoken. We have special guest and chair, but as I have mentioned, that we have also a distinguished audience here in the, sitting in front of me. So I would like to open the floor, and please come forward and say whatever you want to say. Yes, Sushmita. I would also, like to thank or apologize on behalf of my colleague, because one of your songs, very popular song, they attempted, but I hope they performed well. So they were very scared, but I encouraged them to do so. So please take a microphone then, taderke.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Please introduce yourself. And
okay.
Then, yeah.
All right. I'm Shusmita Anis. I'm the Managing Director of ACI Formulations Limited. I'm in the business of agrochemicals, contributing to the food security of Bangladesh, working with farmers. So in that respect, I'm going to mention a few pointers that I'll just add to what you have just said. I also am a Vice President of Bangladesh Employers Federation. Okay, in terms of the numbers, if we look at the numbers, there's a huge number of, because it's an agricultural-based community, the female farmers who contribute significantly in the agricultural sector, but they're not recognized or they're not given adequate value for their time and contribution to the activities that happen in the field. Because I work with the farmers, especially men, what I have realized over time that when we work with female workers, that they are doing so much and they're just not paid at all. So in that respect, I have initiated personally to highlight these farmers who are actually doing something in the field, and they're contributing in chore areas, they're contributing in many respects. And I also realized it is actually fundamentally to change the mindset of the farmers, we have to start from the education. And in order to do that, we have to start having those Shobut Shati, those books, to have real stories of women who have fought, who have come forward, and those real examples, so that men or little boys can also understand that women can do. That mindset has to change from the very basic. But I have also seen the women who come forward, it is the husbands who allow them, quote unquote, allow them to go to the field and do things. So this is where the real farmers who have been able to be successful, like they have, from 500 taka, they have actually been able to buy 40 bighas of land, and they're being entrepreneurs. These are real stories across Bangladesh, and I think these are very inspiring stories, other than just having students, in colleges who are going in the, corporate sector. Being a leader in the corporate sector, I would mention that what we see when I'm hiring a lot of women, and I understand their lack of confidence, even in equal terms, if they're qualified, they automatically assume they will not be able to lead a team. And that acceptability also, as I have entered into this agrochemical men's world, I have also realized there are a lot of technical experts who come in, and to find a woman leader, it's like with a big question mark. And later on, I have to put my foot down and make sure everything is done according to the way it is supposed to. I have myself realized, even amongst the government officials, with all due respect to all men, this is a men's world, and you have to constantly fight to break the barrier that I'm also breaking. So I think through my music, through YouTube channel, through social media, if we all came forward and brought all these real examples in different fields, I think it is going to eventually change the mindset of the society of men, boys, and everyone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is wonderful. You are working on many fronts, so these experiences are quite helpful. So please, yes, microphone to ke then. If you don't volunteer, I would recognize, and I know most of
Hello,
you I can see.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Dakshanda Dukham, and I'm the co-founder of Perennial Youth and Innovation Trust. So thank you, the distinguished speakers. It was an amazing session. So many of the speakers talk about technology, innovation, science. So the world is in a transition mode, and we will be seeing the automation. And everything is moving online. We are talking about sexual harassment. 80% of the women of Bangladesh facing sexual harassment in the online world. It has been discussed that 15% of the Fortune 500 companies are the woman-led companies. Also, the Fortune 500 companies, many of them are technology-focused companies, and the top companies are tech companies. So, as I mentioned that the world is in the transition mode, we are in the fourth industrial revolution, everything will be on automation, data, artificial intelligence, blockchain. So there's a superstition in our society that women are not good at STEM, and particularly in the tech industry, there is not much participation of women in this field. So as the world is the world will be automated and everything will be digital, how much the women of Bangladesh are prepared for the future world? So what do you think? What can be done, or I mean, how much they are prepared? Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very good question. I think it can be answered by one of the persons who is involved in technology, Farhana. So you may like to answer to her question, how women are getting prepared to face the fourth industrial revolution.
Thank you.
শাহানা, আমি
and-
একটু পরে, হ্যাঁ, ঠিক আছে। Whoever you start.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Farhana Errahman, former senior vice president of BASIS. I have accepted that this is a men's world. So, and I have accepted the fact that I have to fight all along. So, I think our girls should prepare themselves to fight with this, in this world. No matter what, in what sector you are working, but we have to fight for our own position. We have to perform. That's the first thing. We have to prepare ourselves. For that, I think আমি কয়েকটা কথা বাংলায় বলতে চাই যে এটা বাংলায় বলি আর ইংলিশে বলি what does it mean leadership means what actually means do we understand that লিডারশিপ মানেটা আসলে আমাদের অনেক মেয়েরাই বুঝতে পারে না এটা কি শুধু is it position that I am holding or gender balance what is it so বাংলাদেশের পার্সপেক্টিভে এই জায়গাটা পরিষ্কার করা খুব দরকার নো ম্যাটার what educational qualification I have but I don't understand that I realized and one thing Nasim bhai said যে আমরা মেয়েরা মেয়েদেরকে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করছি না আমাদেরকে আগে মেয়েদেরকে মেয়েদের সাথে একসাথে চলতে পারতে হবে সেটা আরেকটা জিনিস আমি আসলে আমি কিছু বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম সেটাও বলে দিচ্ছি
সংক্ষেপে বললে আমরা অনেকেই সবাই
জি সো এই পয়েন্টগুলো আমার মনে হয় আসা দরকার ছিল আরেকটা হচ্ছে যে আমাদের টেক্সট বুকে যে কন্টেন্ট আমরা যে মাইন্ডসেটটা তৈরি করে দিচ্ছি আমাদের ছেলে এবং মেয়েদের মধ্যে ছেলেদেরকে আমরা বলেই দিচ্ছি যে আসলে মেয়েরা দিয়েই যাবে সম্প্রদানকারক এবং আমরা মায়েরা না খেয়ে ঘুমিয়েই যাবে সেই জায়গা থেকে আমাদের বেরোতে হবে ইটস ফাইন ইফ আই অ্যাম অ্যাম্বিশিয়াস ইটস নাথিং নেগেটিভ
থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ এখানে অনেকেই আছে পারভিন মাহমুদ আছেন নবনীতা টেকনোলজির ব্যাপারে রুমেসা হুসেন সে টেকনোলজি নিয়েও কাজ করে বাট শাহানা হুদা তার আগে এবং আরও অনেকেই আছেন এখানে আফসানা আছেন এন্টারপ্রেনিয়ার So, university professor অনেকে আছেন I would encourage each and everyone to make a comment at least for 1 minute.
ধন্যবাদ আমি
and of course Judith
আমি শাহানা হুদা আমি মানুষের জন্য ফাউন্ডেশনে কাজ করি আমি সেখানে মিডিয়া কমিউনিকেশনটা দেখি আমি আসলে যে জিনিসটা বলতে চাই আমি ছোট্ট তিনটা ঘটনা বলবো এই তিনটা ঘটনার মাধ্যমে আমাদের সমাজের মাইন্ডসেটটা যে এটা বোঝা যাবে একটা ঘটনা আমি আমার মেয়েকে নিয়ে দেশের বাইরে যাচ্ছি তখন ওর বয়স 18 বছর হয় নাই ইমিগ্রেশন অফিসার আমাদের আটকালেন যে অনেকক্ষণ ধরে উনি ভাবলেন যে আমার মেয়ের পার্মানেন্ট অ্যাড্রেস একটা আমার পার্মানেন্ট অ্যাড্রেস আরেকটা তো অনেকক্ষণ ধরে উনি ভেবে বললেন যে আপনি নিয়ে যাচ্ছেন কিন্তু আপনার মেয়ের পার্মানেন্ট অ্যাড্রেস একটা আপনার কেন একটা তো আমি বললাম যে ওর পার্মানেন্ট অ্যাড্রেস ওর বাবার ইয়েতে হয়েছে আমার পার্মানেন্ট অ্যাড্রেস আমার বাবার ইয়েতে হয়েছে তারপরে উনি অনেকক্ষণ ধরে ভেবে বললেন কীরকম জানি না গোলমেলে আমি বললাম গোলমালের কিচ্ছু নাই ওর বাবা পরিচয় ওর এখানে হয়েছে এখানে তো ওর বাবা আর আমার বাবা এক না দুজনের বাবা আলাদা কাজেই ওনার মাইন্ডসেট একদম ধরাই আছে যে মেয়েকে নিয়ে যেহেতু মা যাচ্ছে এখানে কোনো একটা সমস্যা আছে তারপরে আরেকটা হলো এইটা হলো 3-4 বছর আগের আমরা 4-5 বন্ধু মিলে আমরা উত্তরবঙ্গ ভিজিটে মানে বেড়াতে গেছি তো আমাকে পঞ্চগড়ের যে ডিসি উনি আমার পরিচিত উনি কিন্তু একজন নারী ডিসি উনি ডেকেছিলেন আমরা গেলাম তো ওখানে বিভাগীয় কমিশনার রাজশাহীর বিভাগীয় কমিশনারও এসছেন ওনার স্ত্রী সহ তো আমরা 5 জন গিয়েছি আলোচনা প্রসঙ্গে কমিশনার সাহেব আমাদের বললেন আপনারা 5 জন আসছেন উনি কিন্তু আমাদের চেনেন না আপনারা 5 জন বেড়াচ্ছেন স্বামী ছাড়া এরকম একটা অদ্ভুত কথা উনি বললেন তো আমরা একটু হেসে বললাম জি আমরা আপাতত স্বামী ছাড়াই বেড়াচ্ছি তারপরে ওনার বউ যেটা বললো এটা আরও মানে আমাদের জন্য একটা লজ্জার জিনিস উনি বললেন আপনারা পারেন, আমি কিন্তু একদম স্বামী ছাড়া কোথাও যাই না। উনি হেসে হেসে এটা বললেন, আমি বললাম যে ওটাও ভালো, আপনি যে স্বামী ছাড়া বেড়ান না ওটাও ভালো। তো আমি বলতে চাচ্ছি এই যে মাইন্ড একটা উনিও একজন কমিশনার, ওনার কনসেপ্ট, ওনার মাইন্ডসেটটা আসলে অধিকাংশ আমাদের বাংলাদেশে আমরা যারা এখানে অবস্থিত আমরা কিন্তু অনেকেই প্রিভিলেজড অবস্থায় আছি, ফলে আমরা ব্যাপারটা বুঝতেও পারবো না যে আমাদের বাংলাদেশের অধিকাংশ মেয়েকে কিসের মধ্য দিয়ে যেতে হয়। কিন্তু এর পরেও আমি বলবো যে বিভাগীয় কমিশনার সাহেবের বউ উনিও তো খুব প্রিভিলেজড, ওনারও এটা চিন্তা করা উচিত যে স্বামীর পরিচয়ে উনি এসেছেন এখানে, দ্যাট ইজ গুড, এটার মধ্যে কোনো সমস্যা নাই। কিন্তু এটা কিন্তু আমাদের মেয়েদেরও চেঞ্জ করতে হবে। ব্রেক দ্য বায়াস ফর জেন্ডার ইকুয়ালিটি, নট অনলি পুরুষ, নট অনলি মেল, ফিমেলদেরও এই কনসেপ্ট থেকে বেরিয়ে আসতে হবে যে আমার একটা রবীন্দ্রনাথের গান আছে, হাত ধরে মোড়ে নিয়ে চলো সখা আমি তো পত চিনি না, এই জিনিসটা থেকে বের হয়ে আসতে হবে, আমাদের ঘুরে দাঁড়াতে হবে। কারণ ছোটবেলা থেকে আমরা জেনেছি অধিকার কেউ কাউকে দেয় না, অধিকার করে নিতে হয়, কেড়ে নিতে হয়। তো সেই আসপেক্টেই আমাকেও আসলে কেউ সামনে আগানোর জন্য টানবে না। আমরা যারা এসছি আপনারা যদি খোঁজ নিয়ে দেখেন আমাদের কিন্তু অনেক যথেষ্ট পরিশ্রম করেই প্রিভিলেজড হওয়া সত্ত্বেও এখানে আসতে হয়েছে, এখানে বসে কথা বলতে পারছি। কিন্তু অধিকাংশ মেয়ে এটা পারে না, তাদেরকে এই জিনিসটা আমরা বুঝাতে হবে আমাদের যে হাত ধরে আমাদের কেউ নিয়ে যাবে না, আমাদেরকে নিজেকেই আসতে হবে, যে কোনো মূল্যে আমার মর্যাদা রক্ষা করে। আমি ডিভিশনাল কমিশনারের বই হই, আর যেমন আমি ওখানেই শুনলাম ওনারা পশু ডাক্তার যে ওখানকার, ওনাকে একদম মানে করে পশুভাবি করে ডাকছেন। এই যে একটা পশুভাবি, ডিসি ভাবি, এসপি ভাবি, পশুভাবি, এর থেকে আসলে আমাদের একটু বের হয়ে আসার সময় হয়ে গেছে। তো ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
অনেক ধন্যবাদ শাহানা হুদা রঞ্জনা। সো রুমেসা ওনার কাছে পাশে যান, ওই পিছনে।
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Rumesa. I'm the Technology Director at PwC Bangladesh. And we are very privileged that in Bangladesh, PwC, we have like 35% over women. We are totally blessed that we have a leader who encourages us to actually represent PwC with our different kind of solutions in the market. And we have very, very bright young ladies who actually represent PwC in the market, and we always encourage to get the trust of the clients and be accountable for what we deliver. And we are so privileged that we see a lot of women are eager to actually join the consulting world. And so we look forward to break the bias and continue the winning spirit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nobonita?
খুবই এনজয় করছিলাম, ইংলিশে বলবো না বাংলায় বলবো?
Bangla, whatever language of your choice.
It was overwhelming, it was very emotional, and I was having goosebumps hearing to Rashna Appa, hearing to Ferdowsi Appa, whom I am seeing for the first time, but have heard so much about her, and of course hearing Nasim Bhai, because thinking, if all men could think like him, but কেন ওই যে এইটা একটা খুব সেফ স্পেস মনে করছি, যে আই এম থিঙ্কিং ইটস আ ভেরি সেফ স্পেস বিকজ আই এম সিইং লেস মেন অ্যান্ড আই এম সিইং মোর উইমেন. Thinking about that, I would say that it's not the matter of women can anymore. In the privileged space, it's like women should do everything. In our generation, because I think, Nasim Bhai and we are from the, same generation, and we are the first generation of women who were taught by their parents, you can do whatever a man can do. Because our parents invested the same amount of money in our education. My mother was a postgraduate from Dhaka University in applied physics, but she became a school teacher because she thought that would help her help her raise the children and will make her in-laws happier. So, but my mother taught us that we can achieve just as much as a man can. But that made my life really, really difficult because I can't, leave the aspiration, career aspiration. I pay bills. I know banking, I take care of, I decide, on my earning where my child will go, how much, fees I can pay in her school and which school I can choose. I do everything. And I feel more and more, when I got married, then I had a child, I'm feeling I am doing everything, and then I'm not being appreciated much anywhere, and I am leaving, places thinking that will reduce my stress, and nothing is doing that. So when we blame ourselves as privileged women, I think we should also talk about in these spaces where, privileged women gather, that our life is not as privileged as we are saying it is. Because so truly said that for Nasim Bhai, he can go to, it will be a pride and joy for the family that he's so busy that he has to go abroad, every other week, but not for any of us. So I don't want to say but, and we are privileged, but we are not as privileged that we will get equal inheritance, property from our parents. Maybe Rashnapa is getting the name of his father in his legal farm, but not the equal property. So, I'm not saying, individually, but that's the problem. So we are not as privileged as we thought. But, I want to finish in a positive note that, seeing Fahmida Appa, I always tell her, every time I see her, since she became the Executive Director of CPD, I admired CPD as an organization since I was a child, and I saw only men there. The men I admired, Debo Priyoda, Mustafi Sar, all the men I admired. And when Fahmida Appa started, talking about economics, that changed so much, because we could see her on TV, on newspaper. That was breaking the bias. One woman, she broke the bias. And, she becoming the Executive Director of CPD, I think that makes us so proud, and that is one of the reasons I'm here today as well. And, I think a very important introduction you did not mention about, Professor Raunak Jahan is that she was, she told me in a recent interview with her that she was regarded as the first feminist in Bangladesh, because she was the one who actually first established a feminist gender research organization in Bangladesh. So the fight is actually lifelong. The fight is actually for every day, even for the very privileged woman like us. And from here, I'm gathering the courage, gathering the spirit to continue the fight, because now we have men like Nasim Bhai with us. And of course, Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Navnita. Thank you. সামনে আমি আসবো পারবেন আপা আমি শিরিন আপাকে মনে হয় দেখতে পাচ্ছি সরি ইউ আর হ্যাঁ সিটিং বিহাইন্ড আই ডিডন্ট সি ইউ বিফোর শিরিন আপা শিরিন হক
কি বলবো বুঝতে পারছি না আমি ঠিক বলতে আসিনি
আপনি তো এই কাজই করেন জুডিথ ইউ ডোন্ট লিভ উইদাউট সেইং এনিথিং ফর এ মিনিট ইউ মাস্ট
না আমার খুব শুনে ভালো লাগছিল and the stage is full of people I admire and আজকে এখানেও অনেকে আছে যাদের আমি পিছন থেকে দেখতে পাচ্ছি না but I know these are all women of substance and I think that is what is important, is that we are actually beginning to form a critical mass, and only with a critical mass will things begin to change, because it's not enough that you and I change. We need our institutions to change, and we need our governance to change. So this critical mass is here, and I hope we will work together for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Judith, from FCDO, head of FCDO in British High Commission.
You're over-promoting me there, the High Commissioner's head of FCDO. I'm Judith Herbertson, I'm the Development Director at the British High Commission. I find it really hard to think of something to say to this. What I've been thinking is about the way we use language, the way we accept the premise of the conditioning that we receive as girls and boys, young men, young women, what we value that makes us into either women or female or male role models, and how we think we're breaking the biases. So I've done a lot of thinking and a lot of writing down. I wasn't doing my emails, I promise you. I was sort of reflecting on what everybody was saying and kind of writing advice to myself and thinking about how often we use language that constrains us, that does us down. As women, there are certain linguistic traits we have that are self-effacing, that are accepting the premise that it's a man's world, that we thank men and we acknowledge things, no disrespect to anybody in this room, that we sort of shouldn't. We should just step out there really confidently, and I've heard lots of confident women who are kind of shooting from the hip. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but we almost have to stop talking about it to make it happen. I hate international days in so many ways. If we didn't have to have an international day, we would be there, we'd be across the finishing line, we wouldn't still be talking about women. I actually never think of myself as a woman. That may sound like a slightly odd thing, but I try really hard not to, because I think it comes with baggage. Some of that may be positive, but on the whole, I think when I start to think about myself as a woman, if I notice I'm the only woman in the room, I start acting in a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy way that is never helpful for me. So I don't have any answers or anything interesting to say. It's just been fascinating. I'm so glad I came and that I stayed, hearing all the diverse views, and I'm going to go back through my notes in my laptop and think about how I'm going to change the way I act in future. I think coming from different cultures, from different ages, different backgrounds, you know, the generational thing is really important. But for the younger generation, don't inherit what we've been through. Inherit where you're starting from, and don't let anybody box you in. You don't have to start from the idea that, oh, I'm a woman. Horrible things happen. Yeah, I've been the victim of not all sorts of things, but I've certainly had things happen to me that should never have happened to me. I've not been really unlucky. But those are things that will happen in life, but don't box yourself in from the outset. It's been so inspiring hearing everybody, really has. Forgive me, I have to run. I've talked too much already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this program is being live streamed also, so you can watch it from home. So I would. Okay. Yes. Very quick. So
অ্যাডভোকেট মাসুদা রেহানা বেগম, আমি মহিলা পরিষদ থেকে এসেছি। আসলে আমার জার্নি তো 50 বছরের জার্নি, সেজন্য আমার জার্নিটা কিন্তু অন্যরকম জার্নি। আমি একেবারে প্রথম থেকে শুরু করেছি এবং শেষ পর্যায়ে আজকে এই জেনারেশনকে দেখছি। আমি কিন্তু এখানে আমার মনে হয় আপা ছাড়া আমি বোধহয় সবচেয়ে বয়স জ্যেষ্ঠ মানুষ, কিন্তু করতে গিয়ে আমার একটা অভিজ্ঞতা আছে। যেমন ধরেন, আমি যখন প্রথম অ্যাডভোকেট হলাম, আমি বাগেরহাট থেকে প্র্যাকটিস শুরু করেছিলাম। আজকে ও যেমন বলল তার বাবার লিগাসি নিয়ে আসছে, আমি কিন্তু তখন ফাইটার হিসেবে এসেছি, অ্যাজ বিকজ আমি উইমেন লিডার ছিলাম। রোকেয়া হল থেকে গিয়েছি, আমি মনে করেছি আমাকে কিছু করতেই হবে এবং সমাজের জন্য কিছু করতে হবে এবং নারীর জন্য কিছু করতে, কারণ পিছিয়ে পড়া নারীর সাথে আমাকে কাজ করতে হবে। সেই কারণে আমি শুরু করলাম মহিলা পরিষদ। তারপরে তো প্র্যাকটিস শুরু করলাম। প্র্যাকটিসের প্রথম দিন যাওয়ার সাথে আমি যখন পরিচয় দিচ্ছি যে আমি এখানে এসেছি বৈবাহিক সূত্রে এসেছি, নাম বলিনি আমার হাজব্যান্ড ছিলেন অ্যাডভোকেট। যেহেতু নাম বলিনি, সিনিয়ররা একদম খেপে গেল, একদম কী বলে মেয়ে, কী অধ্যত মেয়ে, সে কিছুতেই বলতে পারলো না তার হাজব্যান্ডের নাম বলতে পারো, বললে কোনো ক্ষতি হতো? আমি বললাম হ্যাঁ হতো, কারণ আমি আমার যোগ্যতা নিয়ে আমি এসেছি, আমার হাজব্যান্ডের উপরে আমি নির্ভর করবো কেন? সেই কারণেই তখন থেকেই যে ফাইট শুরু করছি, এই ফাইট কিন্তু এখনও আমাদের চলছে। অর্থাৎ এম্পাওয়ারমেন্টের জন্য খালি একা চললে চলবে না, সবাইকে নিয়ে চলতে হবে এবং মিলিতভাবে চলতে হবে। এখানে সবাই এসেছে, এখানে যে কয়জন এসেছে প্রত্যেকেই কিন্তু একই কথা বলছি, একই সুরে বলছি, সকলে মিলে করতে হবে এবং সমাজ পরিবর্তনের জন্য মাইন্ডসেট পরিবর্তন করতে হবে, নিজেকে পরিবর্তন করতে হবে, সমাজকে পরিবর্তন করতে হবে, পলিসিকে পরিবর্তন করতে। এটাই হচ্ছে মহিলা পরিষদের দীর্ঘদিনের জার্নি।
অনেক ধন্যবাদ। সো আমি এখন পারভিন মাহমুদ, FCA, who represents in many boards including CPDs. So thank you, Parveen.
Assalamualaikum. আসলে খুবই ভালো লাগছে আজকের এখানে যে আলোচনাটা হচ্ছে আর সবাই এখানে আসতে পেরে যে ব্রেক দ্য বায়াস ফর এ জেন্ডার ইকুয়াল ওয়ার্ল্ড আমরা যে আলোচনাগুলো করলাম এবং আমাদের যে অনুধাবন এখানে আমি একটা জিনিস বলতে চাই যে প্রতি বছরই যখন ইন্টারন্যাশনাল উইমেন্স ডে আসে আমরা অনেকে একত্রিত হই একটা জিনিস কোথায় যেন একটা খারাপ লাগে যে মনে হয় শুধু সাকসেসফুল স্টোরিজ যারা প্রিভিলেজ গ্রুপ যারা কর্পোরেট ওয়ার্ল্ডের তারাই আসছে তারা কথা বলছে কিন্তু একটা বিরাট অংশ কিন্তু বাদ পড়ে যাচ্ছে তা আমার খুব ভালো লেগেছে যে এসিআর ওই কথাটা যে আসলে গ্রামে গঞ্জে সব দিকে মেয়েদের কিন্তু অনেক কন্ট্রিবিউশন এবং এগিয়ে যাচ্ছে আমিও বিশ্বাস করি আমাদের 130 বছর লাগবে না কিছুদিন আর কয়েক দশকের ভিতরে বাংলাদেশ আরও অনেক বেশি সবাইকে নিয়ে আমরা এগিয়ে যেতে পারবো তার জন্য আমাদের পারিবারিকভাবে যেটা যে সম্মানবোধ বাড়ি থেকে এটা কিন্তু কারণ শুধু লেখাপড়া যারা দেখছি প্রিভিলেজ গ্রুপেও এটার অভাব আছে কাজে এটা সব লেভেলেই আমাদের সে মূল্যবোধটা সে আদর্শটাকে উই হ্যাভ টু ইনস্টিল ইন আওয়ার ফ্যামিলি ভ্যালুস রেসপেক্ট ফর ওয়াইফ ফর কো-ওয়ার্কার্স ফর সিস্টার্স এভরিওয়ার সেই জিনিসটা আমাদেরকে প্রথম জিনিস লার্নিং ফ্রম যার যার পরিবার থেকে এটা আমাদের মেয়েদের দায়িত্ব আর একটা জিনিস আমি বলবো আজকে এখানে যে আগে সবসময় হয়তো দেখা যায় যে এসএমই সেক্টর নিয়েই একটা বড় একটা ইস্যু থাকে উইমেন্স ডে আসলে এটা শুরু হয়ে যায় তা আজকে ফর সাম রিজন এটা এখানে আসেনি ওই অ্যাক্সেস টু ফাইন্যান্স অ্যান্ড ডিফারেন্টলি সেটা একটা জিনিস ওখানে আমার একটা বলার আছে আর বাকি ইমেল আমি বলবো যে নন ট্রেডিশনাল সেক্টরগুলি যে আমরা দেখছি এটাও একটা বড় জিনিস আমি বলবো যে আমাদের বইয়ের লেখার ভিতরেও ছোটোবেলা থেকে স্বপ্ন দেখানো আর স্বপ্নটা যে নানা দিকে হতে পারে যে শুধু ডাক্তার ইঞ্জিনিয়ার বা এমনভাবে কিন্তু আমাদের মাথায় ঢুকে যায় পড়ালেখা মানেই এটা হতে হবে ওটা হতে হবে কিন্তু আমরা যে এখন যে কারিগরি শিক্ষা বা ভোকেশনাল যে আমাদের আয়ার নিয়ে কথা বললাম ইন্ডাস্ট্রিয়াল রেভলিউশন সব জায়গায় কিন্তু যে এখন যে প্রযুক্তির ব্যবহার আমাদের যে আমরা দক্ষ নার্স দক্ষ মিডওয়াইফারি এগুলি যে প্রয়োজন সব মিলেই কিন্তু সব ক্ষেত্রেই কিন্তু সব দিকে এগোচ্ছে কিন্তু অনেক বাধা বিঘ্ন করে করে আস্তে আস্তে এগোতে হচ্ছে আমি ইউসুফ বাংলাদেশেরও চেয়ারপারসন সেখানে আমি দেখছি যে আন্ডার প্রিভিলেজ সুবিধাবঞ্চিত থেকেও যে এসে তারা যেভাবে এগিয়ে যাচ্ছে কিন্তু সময় লাগবে তারপরে সেই সুযোগগুলি সৃষ্টি হচ্ছে সবাইকে সেই ধারণাটা দেওয়া আর সিপিডি প্ল্যাটফর্মে আমার একটা বড় আমি বলতে চাই যে এসএমই নিয়ে যে কথাগুলি হয়েছে এখানে যেহেতু নাসিম মঞ্জুর উনিও ব্যাংকের বোর্ডে আছেন বা ওনাদের সেই জন্য আমি এটা বলতে চাই যে আমরা যারা আমরা জানি বাংলাদেশ মাইক্রো ফাইন্যান্সে অনেক অগ্রগতি হয়েছে যেখানে কিন্তু এমার্জিং মাইক্রো এন্টারপ্রেনারদেরকেও হেল্প করা হচ্ছে ইজ নট যে সেই ক্ষুদ্র ঋণ বলতে ক্ষুদ্র পর্যায়ে নেয় এটা এসএমই যায়নি তবে মাইক্রো এন্টারপ্রাইজ লেভেলে এগিয়ে গিয়েছে সেখানে যারা টার্গেট গ্রুপে আছে দ্যাট উইমেন ক্যান গো অ্যান্ড গেট লোন তাদের জন্য কিছু সুযোগ রয়ে গেছে কিন্তু যারা এসএমই বলতে যারা ফোরামে নানা জায়গায় একসাথে হয় তাদের জন্য ইজ প্রবলেম তারপরেও যারা স্ট্যাবলিশ হয়েছে তারা পাচ্ছে কিন্তু আমার অবজারভেশন হয় সবসময় যেটা এটা হোসেন জিলুর ভাই সবসময় বলেন যে মিসিং মিডল that missing middle women are in more difficulties তারা না এনজিও টার্গেট গ্রুপে যেতে পারে না ব্যাংকিং সেক্টরও তাদেরকে সেইভাবে দেখছে না সেখানে আমি রিকোয়েস্ট করে এটা আমি অবশ্যই এসেও বলেছি এবার যে সেখানে একটা স্পেশাল প্রোডাক্ট থাকা উচিত ফর মিসিং মিডল উইথ ইনোভেশনস যে একটা সার্টেন অ্যামাউন্ট অফ কোলাটারাল ফ্রি দিয়ে হওয়া কারণ আমাদের আমরা দেখেছি আমাদের ব্যবসা বাণিজ্যে কী হারে ব্যাংক ডিফল্ট হয় উইমেনরা কিন্তু সেই দিক দিয়ে দে আর অলওয়েজ ট্রাস্টওয়ার্দি এবং তারা ডিফল্ট হিসাবে সেইভাবে কোনো ক্ষেত্রেই তারা পিছিয়ে নেই তারা ডিফল্টার সহজেই হয় না মহিলারা কাজে তাদের পাশে থাকলে তাদের জন্য যদি একটা প্রপার প্রোডাক্ট করা হয় ফ্রেন্ডলি এনেবলিং এনভায়রনমেন্ট উইথ আর সেই জায়গায় একটা প্রয়োজন আছে আমাদের স্টেক হোল্ডার্সদের একটা কোঅর্ডিনেশন থাকা উচিত এই জায়গায় আমি সিপিডিকে রিকোয়েস্ট করতে পারি যদি সম্ভব হয় একটা প্ল্যাটফর্ম গড়ে তোলা যে আমরা শুধু উইমেন্স ডে আসে তখনই আলোচনা করি এভরি ডে শুড বি আ উইমেন্স ডে রাউন্ড দ্য ইয়ার উই শুড টক উইথ অল দ্য স্টেক হোল্ডার্স নট অনলি ফর দ্য প্রিভিলেজ গ্রুপ অর এডুকেটেড বা সারা বাংলাদেশে নানা ক্ষেত্রে মহিলারা কাজ করছে সবগুলিকে ওভারঅল করে যদি একটা স্ট্রিমলাইনিং করা তাদের কথা বলার সুযোগগুলি দেওয়া স্পেশালি উইথ এসএমই সেক্টরও আমি বলবো যে এখানে যে ডিফারেন্ট স্টেক হোল্ডার্স, যেখানে অল দ্য যারা আছে, যেমন আমি বলবো যে এর সাথে মাইক্রো ইন্স্যুরেন্সটাকে যুক্ত করা, এটা আমি সবসময় আবেদন করি, সেটা রিস্ক ম্যানেজমেন্ট ফান্ড বলেন বা মাইক্রো ইন্স্যুরেন্স, যেভাবেই হোক, ফর এমি ফর ব্রেকিং দ্য ব্যারিয়ার্স। আই থিঙ্ক ইটস আ ভেরি হ্যান্ড হোল্ডিং করা প্রয়োজন। সেই জন্য আমি রিকোয়েস্ট করব যে আমাদের এখন আমরা ক্যাপিটাল মার্কেটেও কিন্তু এসএমই যেতে পারে, কাজেই তাদেরকেও সেখানেও একটা এগিয়ে নিতে হবে। সেখানেও নিয়ম কানুন অনেক, ব্যাংকে যেতেই যেখানে কষ্ট হয় সেখানে তো ওই পর্যায়ে যাওয়া, কাজে ইটস আ লং প্রসেস জার্নি, বাট উইথ আ প্ল্যাটফর্ম অফ কোঅর্ডিনেশন আই থিঙ্ক ইট উইল হেল্প টু গো ফরওয়ার্ড। যেখানে আমি বলবো যে ইদ্রা, বিসেক, তারপরে আমাদের এমআরএ, আর সাথে যে ডিফারেন্ট চেম্বার্সগুলো আছে, উইমেন চেম্বার্স, এভরিথিং টুগেদার, নানা জায়গায় নানা হচ্ছে, সরকারও অনেক পলিসি করে, কিন্তু সব কিছু মিলে একটা কোঅর্ডিনেশন কোথায় একটা গ্যাপ থেকে যায়, সব মিলে এই জায়গায় বোধহয় একটা রোল প্লে করার সুযোগ আছে। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ পারভিন আপা। আমি শেষ করব, তবে একটা কথা যে এখানে এসএমইর ডিসকাশনটা আসেনি, সিপিডি আমরা থেকে অনেক কাজ করেছি, সেমিনারও হয়েছে। আজকে ইনফ্যাক্ট আমাদের স্পিকার লিস্টে একজন ছিল, সি কুডন্ট কাম বিকজ একটা আর্জেন্ট তার মিটিং পড়ে গেছে, বাট এখানে ব্যাংকিং সেক্টরও আছে। আমি একটু ফারহানার আগে এখানে রিজওয়ানা, সে একটা ব্যাংকে, সে মনে হয় মেয়েদের জন্যই একটা প্যাকেজ আছে এরকম, তারপরে এন্টারপ্রেনিয়ারও আছে। সো তারপর হ্যাঁ, আমি চলে আসবো আমার হেড টেবিলে, কারণ দেরি হয়ে যাচ্ছে। তো হ্যাঁ,
আসসালামু আলাইকুম সবাইকে, আমি রিজওয়ানা, আমি এমটিভিতে কাজ করছি। আমি রিসেন্টলি আমাদের যে মেয়েদের
মিউচুয়াল ট্রাস্ট ব্যাংক,
মিউচুয়াল ট্রাস্ট ব্যাংক, আমাদের মেয়েদের জন্য একটা স্পেশাল ব্যাংকিং সেগমেন্ট করা হয়েছে এমটিভি অঙ্গনা, ওটাতে লিড করছি আমি। জাস্ট সিপিটি যেহেতু ইকোনমিক রেজুলেশনগুলো নিয়ে কিংবা ডিসিশনসগুলো নিয়ে কাজ করে, আমি দুটো ফিডব্যাক একটু দিতে চাচ্ছিলাম। সেটা হচ্ছে লাস্ট 1 ইয়ারে আমি খুব ডিফারেন্ট সেগমেন্টস অফ ওমেনদেরকে নিয়ে কাজ করছি। একজন যারা প্রিভিলেজ তারা তো আছেন, এছাড়া মিড লেভেল যারা আছেন, কিংবা যারা একদম রুরাল লেভেলে কাজ করছেন, ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল ইনক্লুশনের পার্ট হিসেবে আমরা এই কাজটা করছিলাম ব্যাংকিং সেগমেন্টের। তখন আমরা দেখেছি কোভিডের কারণে কিন্তু আমাদের বেশ কিছু চেঞ্জেস এসছে নারীদের জন্য, কিংবা বাংলাদেশে এই চেঞ্জেসগুলো এসছে যে আমাদের এমএফএসের থ্রুতে আমরা কিন্তু এখন স্যালারি পেমেন্টগুলো করছি, তারপর জিটুপি পেমেন্টগুলো আমরা এমএফএসের থ্রুতে করছি। বাট একটা ছোট্ট এক্সপিরিয়েন্স আমি শেয়ার করতে চাই এমএফএসের ক্ষেত্রে, সেটা হচ্ছে একজন কাস্টমার আমাদেরকে বলছিলেন, আমি যখন একটা ব্রাঞ্চে ভিজিটে গিয়েছিলাম, উনি এসে কমপ্লেন করছিলেন, আগে তো আমি ব্যাংকের অ্যাকাউন্টে স্যালারিটা পেতাম, উনি গার্মেন্টসের কাজ করেন, বাট এখন তো আমি বিকাশের মাধ্যমে স্যালারিটা পাই। তো আমার হাজব্যান্ড তো সব স্যালারি জেনে যায়, আমি যে 8,000 টাকা পেতাম উনি তো জানতেন না, এখন তো উনি জানে যে আমি এখন 8,000 টাকা স্যালারি পাই, উনি আমার হাত খরচ হিসেবে 2,000 টাকা দেয়, বাকিটা পুরোটা নিয়ে যায়। সো আমি আর আমার ফ্যামিলিকে কিছু দিতে পারছি না। সো গভর্নমেন্ট কিন্তু আসলে নারীদের জন্য অনেক কিছু করছে, কিংবা এই কোভিডের কারণে যেন নারীদেরকে ব্যাংকে আসতে না হয়, এমএফএসের থ্রুতে পেমেন্টগুলো করছে, সব ওয়ার্কারদেরই পেমেন্টগুলো করছে। তো ওখানে গিয়ে কিন্তু আমরা বেনিফিটের জায়গায় দেখা গেছে এই ডিসিশনগুলোর ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু ওনাদের কিন্তু সমস্যা হয়ে যাচ্ছে। তারপর আমি একটা এজেন্ট ব্যাঙ্কিংয়ে গিয়েছিলাম একটা কাজের জন্য। এজেন্ট ব্যাঙ্কিংয়ের কাস্টমাররা যারা গ্রামের, একদম গ্রামের কাস্টমার যারা আছেন নারীরা, তো ওনারা জিটুপি পেমেন্ট, বয়স্ক ভাতাও এমএফএসের মাধ্যমে পাচ্ছে, কিন্তু মোবাইলটা ওনার ছেলের নামে। সো উনি বয়স্ক ভাতা যেটা পাচ্ছেন প্রায় 3,000 টাকার মতো, ওনার জন্য এটা অনেক বড় একটা টাকা, কিন্তু মোবাইলটা ওনার ছেলের নামে, সো উনি বয়স্ক ভাতাটা পাচ্ছেন না, ওনার ছেলেই পুরোটা পাচ্ছেন। সো অ্যাজ এ কান্ট্রি আমরা কিন্তু সবাই অনেক কাজ করছি নারীদেরকে নিয়ে, নারীদের হেল্প করার জন্য, তাদের অ্যাডভান্সমেন্টের ক্ষেত্রে, কিন্তু প্র্যাকটিক্যালি রুরাল লেভেলে কিন্তু আমাদের এই বেনিফিটসটা ওভাবে যাচ্ছে না, পাচ্ছি না। সো আমরা যারা প্রিভিলেজ কিংবা আমরা যারা মেইন সিটিজে, আরবানসে আছি, কর্পোরেটসে কাজ করছি, এইটার বেনিফিটসটা আমরা খুব ভালোভাবে পাচ্ছি, যেগুলো আজকে আমরা অনেক ডিসকাশন শুনলাম, কতগুলো বললাম। সো এই বেনিফিটসটা কিন্তু আমরা সবাই পাচ্ছি, বাট আই থিঙ্ক আমাদের আরেকটু ডিপ ডাউন করে নিচের লেভেলে গেলে মনে হয় অ্যাকচুয়াল বেনিফিটসরা, যেটা আমাদের মোস্ট অফ দ্য ওমেনরা বাংলাদেশের আছেন, ওনারা হয়তো বা পেতে পারবেন। সো আমার একটা রিকোয়েস্ট থাকবে, এই জিনিসগুলো আমরা যদি একটু খেয়াল করি, টেক কেয়ার করি, আরেকটু ইনিশিয়েটিভ নেই গভর্নমেন্ট লেভেলে, আরেকটু লজিক্যালি, তাহলে আসলে প্যান বাংলাদেশ নারীদের এগিয়ে যাওয়াটা খুব ইজিয়ার হবে। থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you very much. I think this is again another feature of the patriarchal society, and also governance issues are also involved. 30 seconds, Farhana.
Thank you, Appa. আমি খুব ব্রিফলি বলতে চাই যে মেয়েদের আমরা যারা অন্টারপ্রেনিয়ার তারা বিভিন্ন সেক্টরে গভর্নমেন্ট সেক্টরে যখন টেন্ডার পার্টিসিপেশন করে সেই জায়গাটাতে কিন্তু মেয়েরা এখনও ওইভাবে যেতে পারছে না। আমরা এর আগেও সিপিটিতে এই বিষয়ে আলাপ করেছি। একটা তো হচ্ছে যে বিভিন্ন রকম যে চাওয়া হচ্ছে, এক্সপিরিয়েন্স চাওয়া হচ্ছে, যেটা মেয়েরা পার্টিসিপেটই যেহেতু করতে পারছে না সেহেতু তারা আসলে টেন্ডারে যেতে পারছে না, সরকারের কাজগুলো করতে পারছে না। বড় বড় কাজ কিন্তু মেয়েরা করার ক্যাপাসিটি রাখছে সেই কোম্পানিগুলোর। তো সেই জায়গায়ও আসলে পলিসি লেভেলে কিছু চেঞ্জ যদি আনা যায়, আমি শুধু সেটার জন্য একটু রিকোয়েস্ট করছি।
থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। হ্যাঁ, সমস্যার তো আর অন্ত নাই একেবারে। সো আবার ভালো করতে যেও আরেক ধরনের সমস্যা হয়ে যায়। সো এনিওয়েজ আমরা এখন শুনবো ফ্রম আওয়ার স্পেশাল গেস্ট ডক্টর হুসেন জিল্লুর রহমান, চেয়ারপারসন ব্র্যাক, ফর্মার অ্যাডভাইজার টু দি কেয়ারটেকার গভর্নমেন্ট অফ বাংলাদেশ। এক মিনিট প্লিজ, মানে অনেক লাঞ্চের টাইম হয়ে গেছে, অনেকে ক্ষুধার্ত হয়ে যাচ্ছে। সো
I strongly think that men are not my enemy, but of course they are beneficiary from the discriminated society, and they are getting advantage sometimes double, triple, and more. So if we want to fight the barriers, we need to raise question about this situation, and I think that it will be a big shame if we introduce women as a victim, because they are not victim, they are a fighter, and if they start fighting to ensure their identity as a human being, not as a social being, not as a biological being, then it will be a storm, no doubt. তো যদি আমরা আমাদের পরিচয় তৈরি করতে চাই, সেই পরিচয় তৈরি করার পেছনে যেমন মঞ্জুর ভাই, নাসিম ভাই বলছিলেন যে আসলে মেয়েরা নিজেরাই অনেক সময় করতে চায় না। আমরা একটা প্রতিযোগিতার সমাজের মধ্যে থাকি যেখানে কিনা এই বিষয়টা আসলে মেয়েরা মেয়েদের সাথে কি সেই বিষয়ে আমি আলাপ করতে চাচ্ছি না এখন, কিন্তু এই প্রতিযোগিতার মধ্যে এবং এই ভয়ের সংস্কৃতির মধ্যে এখানে মাইন্ড সেট আপ কোনো পরিবার থেকে জন্ম হয় না, মাইন্ড সেট আপটা সমাজ থেকে, রাষ্ট্র থেকে জন্ম হয়। এবং যখন আমি দেখেছি আমার অভিজ্ঞতা থেকে, আমি এক রাজনৈতিক কর্মী, আমি শ্রমিকদের মধ্যে কাজ করি, নারীদের মধ্যে কাজ করি, এখানে এটা ঠিক যে নারী নেতৃত্বের সংখ্যা খুবই কম। এর প্রথম কারণ কি? রাজনীতিতেও নারীদের সংখ্যা কম, শ্রমিক সংগঠনের নারীদের সংখ্যা কম। তার একটা বড় কারণ হচ্ছে চাকরি থাকবে না। মানে আমার শ্রমিক যে শি ইজ অলসো ইন ফিয়ার অফ লুজিং হার জব অল দ্য টাইম। তো সেইটা একটা বড় জিনিস। আর পরের যে জিনিসটা খুব গুরুত্বপূর্ণ সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমার বাচ্চা কে সামলাবে, যেটা বাচ্চা কিন্তু আমার না, বাচ্চা সমাজের। তাহলে সমাজের এবং রাষ্ট্রের দায়িত্ব নেওয়ার কথা। আমি যখন আমার বাচ্চা লালন করার আজকের সময়ে, সেই চতুর্থ বিপ্লবের সময় এসে আমাকে রান্না করতে হয়, আমার কোনো সেন্ট্রাল কিচেন থাকে না, আমার বাচ্চাদের কোনো ডে কেয়ার থাকে না যেখানে আমার শ্রমিকরাও তার বাচ্চাকে রাখতে পারবে, বা এখানে পেশাজীবী যারা আছে তারাও নির্ভাবনায় তারা একটা সাহিত্য রচনা করতে পারবে, তারা একটা থিওরি নিয়ে চিন্তা করবে, দেশের একটা পলিসি নিয়ে চিন্তা করতে পারবে। সেই রকম জায়গায় যাওয়ার জন্য আমাদের যেই ফাইটটা, সেটা অবশ্যই আমাদের স্টেটের যে চেহারা সেটাকে পরিবর্তন করার জন্য করতে হবে। এবং একই সাথে আমাদের ঘরও কিন্তু একটা ছোট্ট স্টেট, ফলে আমাদের ঘরের যখন আমরা ফাইটটা করব তখন আমাদের এই মধুর সম্পর্ক সবসময় মধুর থাকবে না, মানে আমাদের পুরুষ কমরেডদের সাথে, পুরুষ বন্ধুদের সাথে। কিন্তু আমার মনে হয় সেটা কোনো মানে খুব সেই সংগ্রামটা আমাদের আসলে বন্ধু হওয়ারই সংগ্রাম। আমরা চাই যে নারী পুরুষ একসাথেই এই সমাজটাকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যাবো। ধন্যবাদ।
থ্যাংক ইউ তাসলিমা। সো জিল্লুর ভাই, ওভার টু ইউ।
Thank you. Well, it's a privilege, of course, and to be here with this distinguished panel. Prochur learnings from this incredibly rich diversity of experiences and perspectives. I'll avoid the idea of is the glass half full or half empty. আমার মনে হয় it's very important that this itself is a problem. বাংলাদেশের অনেক জায়গায় দেখি this half full, half empty metaphor is a problem for a very truthful discussion. I think we just need to be truthful. We need to really engage on the truth, whatever be it. And ওটার মিনিংটা কি half না full, let that be found out by through discussion otherwise. So we have to be truthful. And as an economist, we have 50 years of Bangladesh, no question that one of the transformational achievements of these 50 years has been the emergence of women. Mane onek problem ache shobai absolutely correct, but the emergence of women as social and economic actors is one of the fundamental features of the last 50 years. We have to really celebrate that. I think it's worth recognizing the what is celebrating. The issues, I guess, are truthful discussion korte hole, we have to talk about perspectives. Everyone has talked about them. We have to talk about mindsets. That's also critical. We also have to talk about actual actions. Karon shudhu perspective niye alap korle to hobe na. Actual steps have to be taken. The testimonies that I heard gives a wide diversity. Economic empowerment er ekta alochona onek hoyeche. But I want to really also take the discussion, I think Nasim Manzoor slightly touch korechilen, that whatever I'm accomplished, privileged, or I'm in this sector or on that sector, whatever be it, as a citizen I have some fundamental rights. As a woman, I have fundamental rights to access to all sorts of services. Oই space should be, is not sufficiently emphasized when discussing about women. We are talking of opening windows. Yes, that is a critical part of the agenda. But independently of that, if a housewife hasn't gone out, it doesn't mean that she's not eligible for respect, for safety, for services, for her health, or anything else. That discourse, I think, also very, very important to ensure that independently of whatever role we are playing or not, women must have access and must have access to respect and all sorts of social values which matter. It's a point that I would like to emphasize. The other point which I also felt wasn't sufficiently emphasized, we are talking of breaking the bias. But there is a cost of being courageous. Somewhat has come through. Breaking the bias, being courageous is critical. That's what we must do. But then some have to bear the cost of it, because society lashes back. Patriarchal values can lash back. Do we then have the support structures? Do we have the sort of institutional securities for those who have opted to be courageous? And there is actually a huge gap there. It's not enough just to talk of opening these windows. Those who want to break the barriers, support is also a value chain. It's not just opening the window is one step. But if you, for example, have faced, for example, a whistleblower, একজন করলো, অথবা সুপারভাইজারের বিরুদ্ধে গিয়ে একটু নালিশ করলো, the backlash that happens, are we providing the, ওখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে actually there is huge amount of task to be done. ওখানে অনেক কিছু করার আছে. I'm a researcher, so I conduct research. Middle class women and poor women দের সাথে দুটো separate conversation we had. Interesting দুটো insight which I thought I might share here. With the poor women, it's very clear that they were talking more on this part of it. Opening windows, they're saying we will find out our own ways there. Whatever solutions, opportunities you are giving us. Kintu, if I face barriers, I face an attack, I face an injustice, I don't have any grievance redressal opportunity. I don't have any structure where I can go and make a complaint. where I can go and even get not full, at least partial justice. That's a very important part of this grievance redressal must become a very important. Womenদের জন্য এটা আরো বেশি প্রয়োজন. Also for men, also poorer men. But for women, this is absolutely clear. That's what the poor women consultation, that was my insight from that. And it is very clear that we don't have those structures of support. Limited, কিছু একদম নাই তা নয়. There are, শিরিন হকদের নারী পক্ষ তারা কিছু ইয়ে করেছে. There are other organizations who have some support structures. So this is very important. Middle class women, তাদের সাথে, she's a high ranking official actually. But she explained, because it was only women we were talking, that she faced problem about accessing healthcare for herself in terms of husband's sort of permission or things like that. So, I mean, in terms of a privilegeর যে আইডিয়াটা, ওখানের মধ্যে very entrenched barriers কিন্তু রয়ে গেছে. Particularly, health is a critical issue. Healthcare, I think, is almost like a political agenda. It should be for women rights. একটা হচ্ছে যে তার এই যে মাদারহুডের সাথে তো আছেই, but as a whole, functioning as a professional women or otherwise, it's very, very critical. So those were interesting পেয়েছিলাম from research. আমি আরেকটা ইস্যু হচ্ছে, the theme is gender equality for sustainable future, right? And it is obvious that gender equality will be full, 100%, only if there is equity in society as a whole. Otherwise, gender equality সম্ভব না, which means that democracy is central, democratic values are also central, women's rights flourish in a democratic environment, can only flourish, it cannot. Also, I find that the political culture, there's a problem. Bangladesh, particularly, it is a issue এত নানা ধরনের প্রোগ্রেসের কথা which are all true. But I think we also need a discussion about the concepts of masculinity. Toxic masculinity is a critical problem. Why the sense of insecurity suffered by women is fairly rampant actually within Bangladesh. So a toxic masculinity and how we understand power. The discourse on power has to be humanized, has to be in a way genderized, because the power concept is very antithetical to আমাদের অনেক democratic values, and anything which is democratic value থেকে দূরে, the bigger victim always is the woman, more than men actually. So in a way, a democracy not understood just as elections, democratic understood as democratic institutions functioning on an everyday basis, courts, police, and everything else. It's very important that that becomes also a critical agenda for when we discuss women's rights, etc., etc. So, Fahmida যখন বললো, I was thinking যে কি অ্যাড করতে পারি ভ্যালু, আমি মনে হয় করেছি. আরেকটা বলবো যে এই ডেমোক্রেসিক ভ্যালু অ্যান্ড এই গ্রিভান্স রিড্রেসের কথা শুনে, ইট ইজ অলসো ইম্পর্টেন্ট যে এই ভায়োলেন্সের একটা শব্দ আই থিঙ্ক রাশিন ইসলামও বলছিলেন. ভায়োলেন্সের আইডিয়াটাও, it's a gamut. I mean, a murder or a rape is like a discrete event which always engages our attention. But harassment, million types of expressions are there, all of which actually constitute women's sense of courage ke curtail kore fele. Their willingness to, একটা statistic দিয়ে বলি যে windows are being opened in Bangladesh, but women's economic participation rate in Bangladesh is one of the lowest in South Asia, 36%. Why is that so? Why is 36% we are stuck, women's economic participation? Stuck bolte oikhane iye hoye ache. Partly because we have to see these whole ideas of supportive conditions. Women's willingness to go forward, and if someone is not going forward, we cannot really blame her. The job there is to create those supportive environment. The supportive environment in law, supportive environment in the office space also. Ekta to work and bathroom was mentioned, toilets, etc. Even I have 3 daughters, so they always keep me on toes on these indicators. And they kalke amake abar boleche je bathroom hole hobe na shudhu, bathroom e trash can ache kina setao dekhte hobe, because that's also important for a gender friendly toilet or idea actually. But peer group mentality is also a very important issue. আমি ব্র্যাকের একটা নবনীতাকে একটু জিজ্ঞাসা করেছিলাম যে ব্র্যাকের জেন্ডার প্যারিটি অ্যাট ভেরিয়াস লেভেলস অফ কেমন, মিড টিয়ারে মনে হলো একটু কম, একটু মানে বেশ কম. সো আই ওয়াজ ইন দি ফিল্ড অ্যান্ড ওয়াজ আস্কিং ওয়াই ইজ this the case, যে mid tier the gender parity is low. And then they opened up, and one of the answers I got was actually the difficulty in the way the job has been described. A night travel ache, the issue of overnight absence ityadi ache. So I think we have to, when we talk of supportive environment, I mean this talk of opening windows is not a one-step affair. We have to think of a range of issues, because ekhane the job description itself needs to be made more gender friendly, so that maternity leave holei you are not dropped off and you are not I think Bangladesh's jonno in particular, I mean I'm not the diverse sector glass ceilings is an issue, but mid-tier women's larger presence is a critical agenda for Bangladesh. কারণ ওখানে যদি বড় ধরনের একটা প্রেজেন্স তৈরি হয়, আই থিঙ্ক ওই লিডারশিপের যে কথাগুলো এসলো সেগুলো কিন্তু উইল বিগিন টু বি অ্যাড্রেসড. সো আই উইল ফিনিশ বাই জাস্ট I'm also very concerned যে অ্যাকশন পয়েন্টসগুলোর অনেকগুলো কথা বলা হয়েছে. সেফটি অফ কোর্স ইজ এ ক্রিটিক্যাল ইস্যু. ওখানে আমাদের এই ধরনের ডিসকাশনে অবভিয়াসলি উই টক অ্যাট ম্যাটার লেভেল, আমি কিছুটা ম্যাটার লেভেলেই কথা বলেছি. উই হ্যাভ টু টক অ্যাট স্পেসিফিক অ্যাকশন পয়েন্ট লেভেল অলসো. And I feel that safety, particularly safety on the roads, is a critical issue while being mobile. Eta one of the reasons we found je mohilader iye kototuku. I'm not talking of there are women who travel huge distance, but as a whole, when you talk to say bulk of women, their boundary of mobility is limited actually, and often it is by choice, not because of তাদের সুযোগ নাই, কারণ তারা দেখছে যেতে চাইলে যেতে পারে. That's because of this whole issue of safety. So safety issueটাকে we'll have to also address. But want to thank CPD for this discussion, and also I feel I want to end on that note, because these are the conversation I'm always having with my daughters and my wife. I only have daughters like Nasim, Munzur, which is a very happy thing for me. And that was another message from these poor women consultations we had, is that The emotional conversations are also very important. The sense of counseling, the sense of the others are there for you. These sort of conversations, so I would end on that certainly a conversation like this, but conversations are very critical. They are not going to produce results right away, but conversations are very critical because none of us have all the answers. Conversations are critical because through that we can also listen to others and then collectively find the ways forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zilur Bhai, for your reflections and insightful points, actually. So another perspective from both a researcher's point of view and also a political scientist's point of view. You've touched upon the issue of overall democratic environment and also other many micro issues. So now, to close, I would like to request our chair, Professor Raunuk Jahan, to make her remarks.
Thank you very much, Fahmida. I'm very happy to note that both Manzoor, Nasim, and also Hussein Zildur are blessed with daughters. So, oh, okay. But at least there are daughters so that in their old age, they would be very well taken care of by their daughters. And as I mentioned earlier, that I don't want to take too much time, and certainly at the end, and certainly I'm not going to raise any particular question or issues. I only want to go through very quickly some of the takeaways that I take from all the various presentations. First, Rizwana. I thought that was very interesting because she combined the issue of water and technology. And of course, water is, as we know, this is a very basic need, safe water, and this is an issue that is supposed to be women's job, and that should be prioritized. And how through technology then, and generally women don't have access to technology, and so that their workload and everything is much longer, that you can shorten that. So that I found that presentation very interesting, and we should think in these kinds of a way, how the work that women already do, and they spend enormous amount of time, how that that burden can be lessened. Taslima made many interesting points, but one takeaway for me is that when she was talking to garment workers, they prioritize Drobya Mullo. And I think, again, generally when you ask many women, then I think it is not that they are all the time prioritizing gender issues, but we should take all issues are really women's issues, and what is the priority for a particular woman in a particular class. And if women have to raise certain issues, then certainly they should also raise all the issues that concern all the citizens. For Rashna, again, she made many interesting points about the laws and also her personal struggle. But for me, the takeaway is that finally, yes, you face many problems, but you really need to then negotiate and also turn what I thought some of the perceived weaknesses as strength, that she was not going to give away her game, and if the other side thinks she is weak, so be it, and then she will come on back on strong and fight back, which I thought was very interesting. Dr. Firdaus Qadri is not here. Again, she made a lot of interesting points, but for me, the one takeaway is, she said it is not power over other people, but power over yourself, which is the key that women need to think about. And I think that for me it is a very important point that women, as many of us know, from the early 60s when women's movements, the second wave was starting for the feminists, the slogan was our bodies, ourselves. So the power over that very basic right over one's own body was not there. So I think that, for me, was a very interesting point. Again, Nasim Manzoor made many interesting points. But for me, I think, and he gave a lot of different examples from his own trade and factory. But I thought he made a very interesting point about why women have to be like men. Why not value women? And I think it is very, very important that value women as women, because in this whole competitive, that men are there, we have to catch up. And I always have argued that no, whatever women have, change the priorities. Women should be agenda setting and not always run after whatever very misguided way men are leading the world. And here I think I was thinking when Nasim mentioned that the girls, he was reading out this message, that the father has 4 girls or 3 girls and the girl is like a boy. And I would wait for a day when a father has 3 boys or 4 boys and the boy says, I would like to be a girl. And I think that is, then we know that that is the change. For Paula, I think again made many interesting points, but I thought that the very simple thing, saying no. And I think all women, we are generally, I mean my generation certainly, and less this current generation, you are always socialized and brought up to be a good girl and say yes. And to then say no, I think it is very simple, but it is not so very easy. From Alexandra, again, I thought that the 3 R's, that example was very, very useful in the sense that she put gender equality or women's issues in the very broader concept. So I think that is the way one should look at it in terms of representation, rights, and resources, and where women are. Very simple questions, but I think then you can put it as a very central question. From Hossein Zillur, I thought that 2 points. One is, but most important, I thought, is the support structure. That it is very, very important that when you say no or when you struggle, you need to have a support structure. You need to have an place where you can go. And the toxic masculinity that he talked about. Just to, and from the floor, I thought there was a very interesting, couple of interesting questions. One was, really we need to think, what is leadership? Is it leadership means some power over some other people? Or you have certain messages, or so that you don't need a particular position to be a leader. But if you can think differently, if you have, then I think, so I think this needs to be thought about. And also this whole issue we didn't discuss about the SMEs. But let me conclude by just a couple of points. First, I think there was a general agreement, and this problem has been there with us for the last 50 years. One major constraint, one major obstacle for women is that they have to combine what we used to call, or call in social sciences, both productive roles and reproductive roles. And so that whole reproductive work that women do, childbearing, child rearing, care economy, caregiving, these really, since women have to do, that is a major constraint. But here the reproductive role is really not it is a social role. And we were talking about, we sort of think of, now whenever we talk about sustainable, we think of environment. But first, even human being, human race would not be sustainable if women are not performing their reproductive role. And so it is a socially important role. And for that, I think the state has a role to play. And I think in some of the countries where women, like the Nordic countries, Netherlands, there they have a lot of laws, specific laws, actions, parental leave, childcare, so which is helping in the reproductive, for women in the reproductive role. So that, I think, is a major constraint, and that needs to be addressed just not by changing mindset, but I think the state has a role to play, and resources have to be put there. Instead of buying arms, why not put more money in childcare, for instance? So I think we need to, so the priorities, we have resources. It is just that you have to change the priorities. The second major constraint, I think, is violence against women. I think this has been repeatedly talked about, that whole notion of safety, why women are not, cannot work late at night, but I think if they are working equally with men, then I think they need to have the same kind of physical mobility as, I think that is a persistent, I think that is another major problems. And I mean, how can, I mean, it is like every day for a woman going out in a war zone. And how can you have any peace of mind if you are every day really worried about this? And as we know, there can be no development if there is a war going on. Let me conclude by just making two points. One is when, at least I started in the late 60s, early 70s, writing about women and being part of the international women's movement. We used to think a lot more in terms of collective action for women. And that we have so much problem that we need to be, as a group, raise our voice or have collective action. Over the years, I find that that notion of women as a group, women as a collective, as a solution that alone you cannot do many things. I find the strength of that kind of a notion, thinking, and the role of women's movements have also eroded, which I think is not particularly helpful for women. I think we still need to not only think of us saying no or doing things, but also think of other women and think in collective terms. Second, because it is the International Women's Day, I think the working together, national women's movements who have their own country context, but also internationally as being part of the international is very important. Also for the national women's movement, it is not just women's movements where women's movement have succeeded. They have been part of the democracy movement, as in, say, Brazil. They have been part of the other civil rights movements. So that the building alliances for women's movements with the other movements going on in the country, because as I said, every issue is also a women's issue. Women may have a different perspective and different priorities, so that women are not always thinking about just us, women, but they are thinking of leading the country and the planet in a particularly different way. And I think that kind of alliance building with other movements and also the like-minded people in the international women's movement, I think would be very important. So I thank you all. I don't want to stand between you and your lunch. And I thank Fahmida for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I once again thank my panelists. We heard from 9 speakers from the stage, but about 10 from the audience. So we had a rich discussion, and I'm really glad that we have tried to touch upon many issues. There are a lot more, So we will need a full day, but we don't want to exhaust ourselves. So this is a continuing process. This is a struggle for many years to come. But with the message, we carry that every day should be a Women's Day. So it is not a particular day of the year we will celebrate, but we will work towards equality, inclusiveness, and sustainability. And that will be achieved through biases against women, which is prevalent in the community, in the schools and educational institutions, and even in the families. Thank you very much once again. The lunch is served in Ballroom 1. Please do stay with us for lunch. And this program was live streamed and viewed by 780 people, but it will be there and many more viewers will be there, I hope. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.